Chapter 1332. Two beams of black and white light intertwined. They seemed to be alive and dead, light and darkness, water and fire, yin and yang, heaven and earth, hard and soft. They floated behind Fong Qingshan's head and formed a wheel. Life and death followed each other. Light and darkness alternated. Water and fire did not mix. Yin and yang coexisted. Heaven and earth split into two, hard and soft. At the same time, the five elements, yin and yang, heaven and earth, 8 trigrams, slaughter, freedom. All sorts of laws gathered. Heavenly flowers rained down from the sky. But what rained down were reincarnation runes. Countless mysterious heavenly sounds of the great Tao rang out from time to time. It was as if one could see countless liches, demons, asuras, evil ghosts, beasts, commoners, humans, and so on. They were bizarre and dazzling, boundlessly mysterious. When one saw them, one's entire mind would be involuntarily pulled in. He was immersed in it. This was outside his mind. In his mind, there were also 2 dragons, one black and one white, entangled with each other, constantly playing out his mind. Moreover, it was more solid, as if the wheel outside was a projection of the sea of consciousness wheel. The Tao begets 1, 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3, 3 begets all things. All things evolved into the infinite universe, the extreme changes, the complex turned into simple, and all things returned to one. Thus, there was the momentary aging of beauty, the space of desolation, the fate that had long been predetermined in the unseen world, the karma that could not be severed and was still in chaos, the deduction that was flawless, the formation that could defeat the strong with the weak. All of these returned to the origin and merged into the cycle of reincarnation. And then the cycle of reincarnation began to continuously evolve all sorts of mysteries. However, the reincarnation laws that evolve in black and white were not dazzling, but they were very eye-catching, bright, and gentle. And the reason why they were eye-catching was because they moved forward with indomitable will. Wherever they passed, all the other laws, regardless of whether they were high-level or low-level, merged into this bright and gentle brilliance. Like birds returning to the forest, rivers returning to the sea. This was actually the path that Fong Qingshan had always taken, turning the complex into simple, using all Taos to nourish one Tao. If it was just comprehending the reincarnation laws, one would definitely advance by leaps and bounds in the beginning. However, once one reached a certain level, one would definitely slow down. This was also a necessary process. Thus, people who cultivated to a certain level rarely worked in seclusion. Most liked to travel around. Firstly, they were more knowledgeable, and secondly, they could comprehend other things by analogy. This was the same for Fong Qingshan. Although the reincarnation laws didn't progress quickly, they progressed steadily. The surrounding laws were like nourishment, constantly strengthening the reincarnation laws. And reincarnation laws were like lightning, constantly tempering the sharpness of the reincarnation laws. It gave him a kind of sharpness that allowed him to cut through thistles and thorns and advance with an indomitable spirit. Of course, taking the path of simplifying from the beginning was not a good idea, because a person's energy was limited after all. With the eternal blessing, Fong Qingshan was like rain after a long drought. He eagerly comprehended the reincarnation laws. Actually, the eternal blessing didn't just increase one's cultivation. If that were the case, there wouldn't be so many powerful people who flocked to it. After all, there were many spirit pills and natural treasures that could increase one's cultivation. More importantly, the eternal blessing also had a way to fill in gaps. That was especially important. Many people's paths became narrower the higher they went. That was because they'd taken shortcuts and taken the fast lane, wasting their potential and resources. When they couldn't go any further and wanted to make up for it, it was already too late. After all, there was no such thing as a shop. Natural treasures that could make up for one's foundation were extremely rare. The higher one's cultivation, the harder it was to turn back. Thus, the treasures needed were even more precious. And the eternal blessing had such an ability. How could people not flock to it? If it weren't for the fact that the eternal blessing couldn't be taken away, the master of the timeless ark would have been kept in captivity. Moreover, under the power of the eternal blessing, Fang Qingshan constantly reshaped the past, consolidated the present, and looked forward to the future. The eternal blessing was indeed the eternal blessing. In such a situation, it was of a higher level than any sudden enlightenment or severe warning. He could feel his improvement at every moment. It was like this wasn't the timeless ark, nor was it the infinite void. Instead, it was the origin of the great Tao of heaven and earth. Any great Tao could be clearly felt if one thought about it. Most importantly, not only could one feel it, but it was also easy to understand. It wasn't like one could only look at it and feel nothing after looking at it. Here, with just a glance, it was like the great Tao was engraved in one's brain. One would have a photographic memory, and it wasn't the kind that could be memorized. Instead, one could draw inferences from one instance and apply it flexibly. Being shrouded in the eternal blessing, one breath of enlightenment here was equivalent to more than 100 years of hard work in the outside world. Fang Qingshan felt that his physical body's defensive power was no weaker than those top-notch supreme treasures. His spiritual power was unbelievably thick. Compared to ordinary experts of the same level, it was at least 10 times thicker. In terms of quality, it was even more incomparable. It was almost comparable to the spiritual power of a half-step immortal expert. As for why it wasn't immortal, there was still a gap between the two. As for the primordial spirit, it was almost solid, like ice and jade. In terms of size, it didn't seem smaller than the principal sky pillar. In the principal sky pillar, although the progress of the immortal substance wasn't as fast as the improvement of essence, qi, and soul, it was also steadily condensing, layer after layer. If it was in normal times, even with the Great Path Green Lotus diagram, if Fang Qingshan wanted to condense a drop, he would need to spend a lot of essence, resources, and time. Speaking of the Great Path Green Lotus diagram, although Fang Qingshan didn't understand the immortal chapter of the All Skies Tao verification method, due to his cultivation and knowledge, he had improved the time immemorial chapter a lot, especially the Great Path Green Lotus diagram. In the past, the Great Path Green Lotus diagram only had more than 20 grades. This time, Fang Qingshan directly improved it to 36 grades. This was mainly because Fang Qingshan had personally seen the everlasting lotus. Another reason was that the 24 grades red lotus of fire had fused with the innate 5-direction flags to advance to a chaos spirit treasure, and the flower had bloomed to 25 grades. Damn it, I didn't expect that just advancing to the supremacy stage would give me so much pressure. Today, even if I have to risk offending the Dowell school, I must not let them go. Otherwise, if they're so powerful now, how will they become in the future? That's right, since we've already offended them. If we don't kill them, we will be punished. In that case, we shouldn't just sit around. Let's first set up a formation to encircle the surroundings. That way, we can ensure that nothing goes wrong. That makes sense. Let's do it together. Chapter 1333. While Yang Mei was recovering from his weakened state, Jiang Mingyue was urging Jiang Overlord. The timeless ark was transforming, and Fang Qingshan was immersed in the eternal blessing. Outside, they could only see that the Permitha was completely shrouded by the sky-piercing green divine light. Flows of mysterious energy were emitted from the divine light, quickly merging with the timeless ark, accelerating the timeless ark's transformation. Flows of energy were soaring every second, like the blue waves of the sea. Each wave was higher than the previous one. The surrounding immortal realm experts paled. At the beginning of the advancement, they found that Fang Qingshan's timeless ark wasn't ordinary. Although they were vigilant, they didn't care much about it. However, at this moment, when the eternal blessing descended, the timeless ark hadn't completed its advancement. Only then did they realize that they had underestimated his foundation. Even with the aura he was emitting, most of the early-stage immortal realm experts didn't have the slightest confidence. How could they do that? If they succeeded in advancing, wouldn't they be directly suppressed? It was better to bully the old man than to bully a poor youth. Now that he was so powerful, if they allowed him to grow a little, wouldn't he be able to beat them up? Thus, at this time, they had the thought of cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots. Unless they were willing to give up the easy benefits and stop attacking Fang Qingshan's group. Otherwise, once they offended him, not to mention his background, they wouldn't be able to deal with him easily. After the timeless arc advanced, they would have a hard time dealing with him, let alone in the future. However, who would be willing to give up the benefits they were about to obtain and return empty-handed after entering a treasure mountain? Thus, since they had already offended him, they might as well offend him as much as they could. As for the revenge from the Taoist sect, they didn't care anymore. They had been living on the edge of a knife. After today, they didn't know if there would be another day. Since they dared to chase after them, they were naturally prepared. Moreover, the heavens were vast. Was there no place for them to hide? If worst comes to worst, they could just find a remote and desolate place to hide for thousands of years. They don't believe that the E sect has such great power and energy to search for them. Regardless of what these people were thinking, Fang Qingshan and the others had no idea. If they did, they would probably be worried. After all, Fang Qingshan's original plan was that if the timeless arc advanced and Zhang Baowang had yet to arrive, then he would rely on the timeless arc's defense and agility to rush out first and stall for time. However, it would be troublesome if they were to be trapped in the formation. In the end, even though the timeless arc had advanced, he was only at supreme rank. Although he was a bit stronger than normal supreme rank, it was at most like the difference between a normal immortal and a title immortal. He still couldn't reach the level where he could dominate immortal ranks. Facing dozens of immortal realm experts, especially middle stage and late stage immortal realm experts, once he was besieged, he wouldn't be able to survive alone. Fortunately, he was currently immersed in the rapid rise of his cultivation and hadn't noticed this for the time being. Even if they noticed it, it would be useless. They would just be worrying for nothing. After all, so what if they knew? Today he was the meat on the chopping block. Could he stop them from besieging him with a formation? As for the timeless arc's advancement, it had also reached the final stage. Its foundation was already sufficient. The reason why it hadn't completed the advancement was that it needed the eternal power to break through the barrier. As expected, with the eternal power, the 24-rank Red Lotus of Fire and the Bell of Chaos, which had been stuck for a long time, easily broke through the bottleneck of a Grade 1 Supreme Treasure and instantly became Grade 2 Supreme Treasures. Since then, the highest grade of Fang Qingshan's treasures had finally increased. From today onwards, he also had Grade 2 Supreme Treasures. Moreover, he had several of them, especially the Bell of Chaos. As 1/3 of the top Chaos Supreme Treasures, its foundation was even stronger than the Life and Death Gourd and the Wishing Pond. Not to mention becoming a Chaos Spiritual Treasure, it wouldn't be difficult for it to become a Chaos Supreme Treasure. The waves of the sky faded, but the heat couldn't stay. After an unknown amount of time, it felt like a moment, but also like thousands of years. At a certain moment, the Permethaw's entire body shook. An even greater pressure that seemed to have undergone a qualitative change suddenly erupted. It was like a peerless, savage beast. Although it was just a short burst, it still made those early-stage immortal experts stiffen. Obviously, the timeless arc had completely advanced to the Supreme Being grade at this moment. While everyone was frightened, they also felt lucky because they had prepared well in advance. The grand formation had been set up. As soon as the light of the everlasting lotus faded, they would launch a thunderous attack. Fang Qingshan was like a turtle in a jar, no longer a threat. At the same time, Fang Qingshan's treasure vault in the timeless arc was completely emptied. Whether it was the secret vault or the outer vault, years of accumulation were all gone this time. Regardless of whether they were precious or not, they were all gone. The next time the timeless arc wanted to advance, it would be much more troublesome. It needed to accumulate bit by bit. Moreover, as the timeless arc's cultivation base increased, it didn't just need the quantity of resources, but also the quality. Otherwise, it would be like a mountain or a sea, with resources that couldn't even be compared to the size of a fist. Of course, this was a story for another time. With the success of the timeless arc's advancement, The eternal blessing had also reached the final stage. At a certain moment, Fang Qingshan, who had fallen into a trance, suddenly opened his eyes. In an instant, two deified figures, one black and one white, appeared like a reincarnation disk. An aura that was even thicker than the aura of Yang Mei before his advancement involuntarily spread out. At the same time, the vast divine light that shrouded the sky above the timeless arc, which acted as a protective umbrella, disappeared silently like a tide. If the timeless arc hadn't undergone an earth-shattering transformation, those who didn't know would have thought that nothing had happened. As for finding the melon by following the vine, that was something that shouldn't even be considered. If it was so easy to achieve, there wouldn't be no legends of those above the God Emperor in the boundless void and the myriad of worlds. Good. Fang Qingshan first felt the changes in his body and couldn't help but say good 3 times. After all, compared to before, the changes were too great. If Fang Qingshan didn't know that this was his own body, he might have thought that he had reincarnated again. If Yang Mei had been like this, he would have been able to go through at least 3 levels of Thunder Tribulation Transcendence easily. Of course, if he had a foundation like Fang Qingshan, he was afraid that the Thunder Tribulation Transcendence would not just be a high-level one, but a top-level one. When that time came, he was afraid that it would be even more painful. Whether he could overcome it or not was a question mark. Peak primordial chaos. This is really peak primordial chaos. It seems that I have to prepare to break through to the immortal realm. Fang Qingshan took a deep breath, his eyes full of wisdom, and his heart couldn't help but feel bursts of joy. Chapter 1334. His cultivation base could no longer be improved, and all his techniques, abilities, and nomological laws had been perfected. Fang Qingshan had reached the limit of his stage, and before he broke through to the immortal realm, he could no longer make any progress. At this point, Fang Qingshan could even go through the immortal tribulation directly. However, Fang Qingshan felt that he should wait a little longer. Firstly, it was not the right time, and there was still a group of immortal realm experts eyeing him. Although tribulation transcendence could be delayed for a while, it could only buy time for himself. Jiang Mingwei and the others could not. Moreover, tribulation transcendence was different from the advancement of the timeless arc in Sa. The advancement of the timeless arc was due to the everlasting lotus, so no one dared to do anything. However, tribulation transcendence was different. If someone took things too hard or used some tricks, such as controlling 1 or 2 people to rush into the lightning tribulation, even though Fang Qingshan had a trump card like the timeless arc, he might not be confident that he could safely pass through the lightning tribulation. Moreover, because of the eternal blessing, his cultivation base did not increase at all, and it even made his foundation more solid. But at the end of the day, Fang Qingshan hadn't even had the time to adapt to his current strength. Although he was stronger than before, Fang Qingshan did not have full control of his body and strength, and could only exert 70% of the effect at most. It was not appropriate to improve further. After all, according to his own speculation, his immortal tribulation should be at least a top-level one. With such a lightning tribulation, no matter how careful one was, one could not be too careful. Rashly undergoing tribulation transcendence, without even adapting to his own strength, was no different from courting death. Therefore, Fang Qingshan planned to settle down for a while. On one hand, he wanted to adapt to his newly advanced cultivation base, and, on the other hand, he wanted to wait until he joined the Tao will sect to stay in the Sutra Pavilion for a period of time to settle down. He did not need to talk about secret techniques, but he needed to thoroughly absorb ordinary knowledge. Knowledge was power and wisdom. Since Fang Qingshan had broken through until now, his foundation could be said to have been exhausted. If he continued to blindly improve, it would not be good for his future at all. Power needed to be commanded by Tao. Pure power was just a barbarian. It was very easy to deviate and walk down the wrong path. It was just like Zhou Maji, Murong Bo, and the others who had secretly learned the Shaolin Temple's unique skills. Although they seemed to be more powerful than Xian Ci and the other Shaolin Temple monks, they had hidden worries. It would be fine if they didn't expose themselves, but once they did, they would be finished. Therefore, from now on, not only did he need to accumulate resources, but he also needed to accumulate knowledge. Of course, Feng Qingshan wasn't the only one who had benefited greatly. Timeless Arc wasn't any weaker than Feng Qingshan. It was needless to say that he had advanced to the supreme level. Inside the Eternal Divine Furnace Unit, the Life and Death Gourd and the Wishing Pond, which were originally damaged Chaos spiritual artifacts, were almost fully restored. The Grade 24 Red Karmic Fire Lotus had become Grade 25, and the Chaos Bell had advanced to a Chaos Supreme artifact. The Timeless Arc's body had expanded to 440,000 feet, which was more than 100,000 feet bigger than an ordinary Supreme Grade Timeless Arkansas. The efficiency of the Lightning Gathering Pagoda was 10 times higher than before, and the level of energy it could absorb was much higher. For example, in the past, it could only absorb Chaos spiritual energy, but now, it could absorb energy that was even stronger than Chaos spiritual energy. It was the same for the Eternal Lightning Pool. Compared to before, it had improved by more than 100 times. Of course, this was referring to the ordinary operation. Once he took out a Chaos spiritual artifact, it would probably be no different from before. The most important thing was still the Thunder Emperor and the newly added Eternal Divine Furnace Unit. Now, the Thunder Emperor was no different from an ordinary living being. Moreover, because it was born from the Eternal Lotus Seed, it was even more mysterious. Compared to those divine beings born from heaven and earth, it wasn't inferior at all. It was a pity that he couldn't become an independent entity and could only rely on the master of the Timeless Arkansas. However, in terms of cultivation and combat strength, the Thunder Emperor was definitely comparable to a top-notch title immortal. As for the newly added Eternal Divine Furnace Unit, it naturally made Feng Qingshan even more happy. Last time, the Timeless Arc advanced from unparalleled to supreme. Because it had a strong foundation and used a short time, the Everlasting Lotus rewarded it. Originally, there were only 3 new Eternal Divine Furnace Units, but now there were 2 more out of nowhere. This time, the Everlasting Lotus even said that it wanted to reward it. Not to mention the other benefits, this time the Eternal Divine Furnace Unit had increased by 7 in one go, 2 more than the last time. Seeing this, Feng Qingshan couldn't help but smile. The Eternal Divine Furnace Unit. Why did others choose the defensive Timeless Arc or the offensive Timeless Arc, but very few people chose the comprehensive Timeless Arc? Was it because the pure offensive type and defensive type were better than the comprehensive type? Actually, that wasn't the case. It was just that there weren't enough Eternal Divine Furnace Units. Energy and ability were limited, so they could only be specialized. They were afraid that they would lose sight of one thing and end up creating something neither, wasting a great opportunity. The importance of the Eternal Divine Furnace Unit was obvious. This time, there were 4 more units out of nowhere. How could this not make Feng Qingshan happy? Although the Sword Cultivator and the Body Tempering School were very powerful, why couldn't they become mainstream? In addition to their higher requirements for aptitude, another reason was that their methods were too simple and it was easy for others to restrain them. For example, the Sword Cultivator. If the sword was in hand, the person would be there. If the sword was destroyed, the person would die. If the sword was not in hand, the strength of the person would be directly cut in half. The same was true for the Body Tempering School. Although the body's defense was strong, it was not easy to heal and recover after a serious injury. The Timeless Arc had similar concerns. Pure offensive and defensive types were not easy to restrain, but their methods were a little simple. When dealing with the enemy, it was easy to take care of one thing and lose sight of the other. But why not choose the comprehensive Timeless Arc? This was because the Eternal Divine Furnace Unit was limited, and Feng Qingshan obviously would not have such concerns in this regard. After all, a normal Timeless Arc would only have 3 Eternal Divine Furnace Unit each time it leveled up, but when he was at Lingyan level, he had 9. This was why his Timeless Arc was so powerful. It had just reached the Supreme Realm, but it could suppress early-stage Immortal Realm cultivators, fight against mid-stage Immortal Realm cultivators, and retreat from late-stage Immortal Realm cultivators. Whoosh! Crack! Just when Feng Qingshan was feeling excited about the addition of 7 Eternal Divine Furnace Unit on the Permitha. The moment the eternal light above the timeless arc dissipated, the impatient Immortal Realm cultivators immediately attacked without any hesitation. They wanted to destroy the timeless arc and capture Feng Qingshan and the others. First was the formation, which they had prepared a long time ago. Walala! In an instant, dozens of mysterious yellow chains appeared from Master Void's body. They were crystal like jade and locked onto the timeless arc without any warning. Moreover, with a thought, the mysterious yellow chains locked onto the timeless arc began to shrink. An indescribable force began to seep into the timeless arc, making it like a turtle in a jar. Chapter 1335. As the array chains contracted, the sound of metal clanking could be heard. At the same time, the eternal heavenly ship also released creaking noises. Brilliant light shone. A lotus platform-shaped pagoda towered, resisting the chains, preventing them from exploding. This lotus-shaped pagoda was the Timeless Arc's tower unit. It would automatically protect itself when it encountered external danger. Even so, Feng Qingshan could feel that the Timeless Arc's power had been weakened by 30%. It was firmly locked in midair, unable to move. It had completely lost its mobility. At this moment, he felt the same as the people who had been trapped in the Zhodian star array. The array suppressed and locked. His hands and feet were tied. At the same time, attacks poured down on the Timeless Arc like a tide. These were the attacks of Immortal Realm experts. Even if they did not go all out, a casual attack was enough to take the life of a peak primordial chaos expert. Wherever the attacks went, large cracks opened in the void, like the mouth of a giant beast in the abyss, opening the door to hell. Damn it, they're all Immortal Realm experts. Moreover, there's so many of them. There's even a late stage of Immortal Realm expert. To deal with me, they besieged me and arranged the formation first. Moreover, they attacked me together. Feng Qingshan immediately felt the changes in the Timeless Arkansas. There were several shackles holding him in place in midair. Although they weren't particularly powerful to the eternal heavenly vessel, they hadn't put too much effort into setting up a formation to restrict Feng Qingshan so that he wouldn't be able to escape. Furthermore, there weren't any formations that were powerful enough to allow him to escape with just a bit of effort. However, this was under normal circumstances. Now, he was besieged by dozens of Immortal Realm experts. This short period of time could cost him his life. When experts fought, victory or defeat was decided in an instant. For example, in the time it took for him to break free from the chains, the attacks had already landed. Moreover, the attacks came wave after wave. There was no time for him to catch his breath. His previous plan immediately turned into bubbles. This was because if they wanted to use the flexibility of the Timeless Arc to engage in guerrilla warfare, they would first need to break free from the constraints of the formation. With the restriction of the formation, these undying realm experts had already caught up. Therefore, the only path in front of him now was to resist, and that was to resist. Senior brother, when will the reinforcements arrive? I'm afraid I can't hold on for much longer. Feng Qingshan sighed and said to Jiang Mingyue, Soon. Just hold on for a little longer. Jiang Mingyue's expression was ugly as well. After all, Jiang Overlord had not arrived yet. She knew the situation outside of the Timeless Arc like the back of her hand. Should I use my trump card first to buy some time? That won't be necessary. Let's talk about it when I can't hold on anymore. Feng Qingshan shook his head and refused. Then he turned, a solemn expression on his face. Before reinforcements arrived, he could only go all out. Time is like water. Time Permitha fills the sky. Space, time, and space intersect. Freeze. In a split second, 2 supreme treasures flew out. It was a bright lamp. The light wasn't dazzling, but it glistened brilliantly like moonlight, releasing a streak of resplendent divine light. One could vaguely hear the sound of flowing water. It was the power of time that was swirling about. A stone bridge. It was simple, heavy in vicissitudes. As it stretched and shrunk, It crossed the east and west, north and south. Between the 9 heavens and 10 earths, any place with space seemed to be affected by it. Then, the power of time and space intersected, forming an even more powerful power of time and space. It was like the birth of the sun, shining on all things. Whoosh! At this moment, the sound of flowing water was no longer the babbling of a brook, but the roaring of a river. The white wolf reached the sky, sweeping up piles of snow and stirring up clouds and smoke like arrows. Wherever the light passed, everything stopped. The formation stopped. The chains that locked the timeless arc stopped. The attacks that attacked the timeless arc stopped. The collapsing space and tearing laws stopped. The passing water lamp and the Permitha bridge had become pre-celestial treasures. The power of the 2 top laws of time and space was finally revealed. Before, although they were also pre-celestial treasures, they could not compare to the death scythe. But now it was different. Time was the supreme, space was the king. As one of the most heaven-defying laws, once it exploded with its power, the effect would be great. Time and space converged, connecting to the river of time and space. The power of time and space was endless, everywhere. Even if dozens of immortal realm warriors attacked at the same time, they were still restrained. However, these immortal realm experts weren't weak either. Although the passing water lamp and the other shore bridges attacks were mysterious and powerful, they couldn't completely restrain their attacks. The 2 attacks were in a stalemate, as if they could break this restraint at any time, breaking the shackles of time and space. However, Fang Qingshan would not give them the chance to break the restraint. Break! After the time and space stopped, he directly attacked. The time and space were broken. Boom! The surging river of time and space was like a flood that opened the dam, pouring into the vast ocean. Crack! 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 In a split second, the entire formation area was like a fragile mirror, instantly shattering. Whether it was the formation shackles or the immortal realm attacks, at this moment, they all shattered into countless fragments of the void, shooting in all directions, completely disappearing. Again, Fang Qingshan knew that if he let those dozens of immortal realm warriors attack him together, although the timeless arc was powerful, it was not without its limits. It could not hold on for long. Therefore, he could not escape, could not use the flexibility of the timeless arc, and could not fight a guerrilla battle. What he needed to do now was to weaken the opponent's strength as much as possible. Therefore, Fang Qingshan didn't hesitate at all to take out the 2 treasures after using Space Shatter and taking on everyone's attacks. The Zhodian Star Formation and the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation. In order to weaken the opponent's strength, the only way was to weaken the opponent's members. To achieve this, there were 2 ways. One was to make the opponent lose the ability to fight. Regarding this, Fang Qingshan could not do it, or rather, even if he could do it, he could only target one person, which was completely useless. The other way was to trap a portion of the people. To trap people, what was easier than using a formation? Of course, Fang Qingshan did not want to use a formation to suppress everyone. That was not realistic. If that could be done, Fang Qingshan would not need to worry. Although, as the timeless arc became a paragon, the various eternal divine furnace units all improved greatly. The Zhodian Star Formation, which could originally resist the immortal realm, was now even more different than before. However, it was only different now. It did not mean that it had soared to the sky. Still, even if it could only suppress a few, it was enough. Chapter 1336. Fang Qingshan did not expect 2 diagrams to be able to sweep away all the enemies in one fell swoop. But it was better to eliminate as many as possible. After all, they were not origin immortals. No matter how weak they were still a bit stronger. Anyway, he only wanted to weaken the enemy's strength. The Zhodian Star diagram and the 9 Bends Yellow River diagram instantly unfolded. For a moment, starlight shone brightly and yellow sand filled the sky. Within the Zhodian Star diagram, countless stars shone brightly. Nebula filled the sky with thunder and lightning. The stars moved and changed the sky and earth. Within the nine bins yellow river diagram, it was leisurely and indistinct. Tragic aura filled the sky, and haze covered the ground. Lost immortal spirit, vanishing immortal soul, trapped immortal form, damaged immortal aura, lost immortal original body, damaged immortal body. In an instant, 8 undying realm experts disappeared without a trace. The Zodion star diagram suppressed 5 early-stage immortal experts. The 9 bins yellow river diagram suppressed 3 early-stage immortal experts. After suppressing the 8 immortal experts unexpectedly, the diagrams returned to the timeless arc at lightning speed. In the end, the immortal experts were not easy to deal with. Even though they were suppressed, it did not mean they could not fight back. Just like the monsters that swallowed Sun Wukong in the journey to the West World. Without the suppression, they would have been tortured to death. Fang Qingshan did not want to fail to suppress the other party and end up dragging him down instead. So, Fang Qingshan quickly retracted the diagram and used the timeless arc's power to suppress them. In this way, they could not turn the situation around in a short time. Even though this would distract the timeless arc and indirectly weaken its own strength, after weighing the pros and cons, it was much better than letting the immortal experts attack outside. Fang Qingshan's quick punch dazzled the immortal realm warriors. When they regained their composure, they couldn't help but take a deep breath. Initially, he had already thought highly of Fang Qingshan. Not only did he set up a formation, but he had still underestimated him. It was as if a dormant, ferocious beast had finally revealed its fangs, revealing its sharpness. It was chilling. Once he successfully advanced, it was fine if he didn't attack, but the moment he attacked, he instantly caused their side to lose 8 undying ranks battle strength. It was truly terrifying. What a powerful space-time treasure. What a powerful formation. But don't worry, it's just an honorable level timeless Arkansas. Even if it mutated, it can't overturn the heavens. The heavens are so big, and there are many timeless arcs. I've never heard of a timeless arc that could suppress tens of undying right after becoming an honorable. After the late-stage immortal realm expert saw that, he pulled himself together first. His face grimaced and darkened as if it was about to drip water. However, he did not panic and said calmly, "Moreover, suppressing 8 undying realm experts isn't an easy task. They definitely need to split up their forces so we can work together. However, now isn't the time to be holding back. Everyone, bring out your true abilities and attack together. I refuse to believe that an eternal heavenly vessel that hasn't even reached the immortal level and has just become a paragon can withstand our attacks." All right. Hearing that, the others regained their composure. Of course, they didn't say anything else. Now is not the time to hold back. They didn't want to follow in the footsteps of the previous 8. Although they were only suppressed, if they fell into the enemy's trap, it wouldn't be easy to escape. Moreover, they had so many undying realm experts. If they failed miserably in the end, and couldn't even take down Fang Qingshan's group, then it would be really interesting. They would become the laughing stock of the entire world. At that moment, all of them unleashed their trump cards. However, someone took out a long spear. There was no attribute, only a dot on the tip of the spear. There was endless sharpness, somewhat similar to the mosquito dragon sting of the mosquito Taoist, which had an unparalleled ability to break through defenses. Someone took out a divine ability, condensing a long spear. The demonic flame was surging, seemingly real and illusory, like the fountainhead of evil. It was even more evil than the original Sky Demon Talisman. It was as if one look at it could make people fall into the demonic path. Someone unsheathed his sword. The shocking sharpness and light were extremely dazzling, as if it was pointing at the sky, as if it was going to pierce through the void. As the sword fell, endless lightning gathered and compressed within the sword. Extreme destruction exploded. The divine abilities were all great divine abilities, at least immortal rank. The spirit treasures were also powerful spirit treasures. The weakest one was peerless rank 1, and the stronger ones were even upper rank 2. Good timing. Seeing these attacks, Fang Qingshan was the first to bear the brunt. Naturally, He could feel the terrifying killing power they transmitted. If it was Yang Mei, even if he had the chaos bead, if he took it head-on, even if he didn't get blasted into smithereens, the result wouldn't be any better. However, he didn't panic. At this moment, panicking would be useless. Instead, it would cause him to panic. Most importantly, he was confident that he, who had the timeless arc, had the power to resist. Treasure Fall coin go. Fang Qingshan responded calmly. The first thing he took out was the Treasure Fall coin, which he hadn't used for a long time. The reason why he didn't use it was not that the Treasure Fall coin was useless. After all, before the timeless arc had advanced, the Treasure Fall coin had already advanced to connate cardinal treasures ahead of the Death Scythe and even the shocking Thunder Flag. Therefore, it wasn't that he didn't use it. Instead, he didn't want to use it easily. As for why he didn't use it, it was actually very simple. First, he had just arrived in the boundless void. During the desolation, he was almost at the top of the pyramid. Using other methods was enough to deal with it. Naturally, he didn't need to use the Treasure Fall coin. Moreover, the Treasure Fall coin's function was to drop things. Fang Qingshan's natural mystique, the 5 elements bracelet, also had the same effect. Although his natural Tao had transformed into the reincarnation Tao, and the 5 elements bracelet had also transformed into the reincarnation ring, its effect hadn't changed. As for why he didn't want to use it easily, it was because the Treasure Fall coin was different from other spirit treasures, such as the passing water lamp and the chaos horn. It wasn't just a simple offensive and defensive spirit treasure. It was also the mother of the timeless arc's divine ascension coin. If something happened to it, the entire currency system of the ruins would have problems. Following that, the ruins would also have problems. Although the timeless arc wouldn't be destroyed and could be repaired very quickly, it would still affect everything in a short period of time. Therefore, under circumstances where he didn't have to use it, Fang Qingshan basically didn't use the Treasure Fall coin. But now it was time to use it. After all, it was a matter of life and death. Moreover, the timeless arc's advancement had greatly increased the power of the Treasure Fall coin. It had already reached the level of the cauldron of heaven and earth, which was a high-grade, connate cardinal treasure. It wasn't something that the reincarnation ring could compare to. Even if it was destroyed, it wouldn't be easy. Chapter 1337. Kill. Before calculating victory, one had to consider defeat. After throwing out the Treasure Fall coin, Fang Qingshan once again took out the Great Void armor. A piece of armor covered the entire heavenly ship. The pieces were like scales, forming a tortoise shell. Then he took out the Bell of Chaos and the 25th tier Red Lotus of Fire to strengthen the Great Void armor, forming a second and third defense system. A huge bell shrouded it, with the sun, moon, stars, earth, water, fire, and wind revolving around it. Within it, there were even mountains, rivers, and thousands of races of the desolation. It reflected the attacks of any treasures and weapons, as well as the damage of all mystiques and dharma spells. It had both attack and defense, and was undefeatable. A 25th tier Red Lotus of Fire bloomed, blotting out the sky and covering the earth like a kingdom of lotuses, a sea of fire. Then he took out the Death Scythe, the Life and Death Gourd, the formation Breaking Drum of Beasts, the Passing Water Lamp, the Bridge of Permetha, the Shocking Thunder Flag, the Horn of Chaos, and other offensive treasures. Even the deck units were not spared. Boom, boom, boom. Cold arrows, metal-like crossbow bolts, and all kinds of magic bullets and cannonballs rained down like a meteor shower. The best defense was offense. If it was purely defense, even if there were a few lines of defense, it would be completely useless. However, with so many units and treasures being used at the same time, the lightning-gathering pagoda in the Timeless Arc was also overloaded, sucking in energy from all over the world, and then channeling it into the eternal pool of lightning, transforming it into eternal lightning power, and then sending it to the various combat units in the Timeless Arkansas. Just like that, the eternal power in the eternal pool of lightning was reduced by 50%. If it was an ordinary early-stage Immortal Realm cultivator, he would not be able to use it at all. Even if he did, he would be emptied in an instant and would not be able to fight again. However, Even though the consumption was a little high, the power was still considerable. The first was the treasure fall coin. In the past, this treasure was already a very heaven-defying treasure. In the investiture of God's great world, it had only appeared for a short while, but it had already defeated Zhao Gongming, who had defeated the 12 golden immortals of the Clan of Enlightenment. If it wasn't for the fact that it could only land 3 times a day and couldn't land on Khanate cardinal treasures or weapons, it would definitely be ranked as one of the top 10 Khanate numinous treasures. As Fang Qingshan integrated it into the Timeless Arc, and as the Timeless Arc leveled up several times, its quality was tempered again and again, especially after it became the mother coin of the ethereal coin. It was like adding wings to a tiger. Borrowing the ethereal coin to open up the path of money, the Death Scythe, and even the Thunderclap flag would enter the ranks of the Khanate cardinal treasures. Now that the Timeless Arc had ascended to become an utmost exalted being, its strength had increased exponentially. It had broken through from low grade to mid grade to high grade. Then, under the control of the eternal God's power, it erupted with unprecedented might. It didn't matter if it was a weapon, a spiritual treasure, a level 1 treasure, or a level 2 treasure. Treasures and money were all welcomed. As the gold coins scattered, the sky was filled with a rain of gold, shining with a golden light, blinding the undying warrior's titanium alloy eyes. With a round sky and square earth, a pair of wings grew on his back, and with lightning speed, he flew towards those treasures. In an instant, most of the treasures were like deflated balloons, instantly shriveling up. Then, the treasure's coin released a divine light and brought all of them back to the Timeless Arc, suppressing them in the eternal divine furnace. This series of actions could be said to be completed in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint. As a result, the Immortal Realm experts didn't even have time to react. They lost contact with their treasures just like that, and their primordial spirits couldn't sense it at all. Damn it! Where's my spiritual treasure? What kind of evil technique is this? Hurry up and return my spiritual treasure to you. Otherwise, you won't be able to have a full moon today. Don't use your treasures. Use mystic abilities and battle skills as much as possible. They had already seen the power of the Timeless Arc before, so they were mentally prepared. However, they still didn't expect to be caught off guard by the treasure's coin. The strangeness of the Treasurefall coin was because such a spirit treasure was rare even in the myriad of worlds in the universe. After all, it dropped everything, regardless of whether it was a weapon or a spiritual treasure or a mystic ability or a mystic ability. It could even surpass grades and group attacks. Yes, the Treasurefall coin didn't merely target a single spirit treasure, and it split into a myriad of forms instead. All treasures weren't able to escape its attack. Moreover, it didn't just sweep clean their magic treasures. Even the divine abilities they executed were weakened. Of course, there were gains and losses. Because it was a group attack, it was inevitable that the single target attack would be weakened. For example, if it targeted a single spiritual treasure, even a superior grade level, 2 spiritual treasure would not be able to escape the fate of being dropped if it wasn't checked carefully. If it targeted mystic abilities, even superior grade, immortal level mystic abilities could be corroded. However, after using a group attack, the treasure's coin could only drop inferior grade level, 2 spiritual treasures at most. As for mystic abilities, because Fang Qingshan specifically targeted spiritual treasures, the mystic abilities weren't weakened that much. However, this was enough. After all, although level 2 treasures were the standard for immortals, there were still very few people who could afford to use an upper level 2 treasure. Moreover, one's cultivation needed to be at least in the late stage. However, most of these people were at the early stage of immortal, and the treasures they had were mostly lower level too. Hence, the treasure's coin was able to accomplish this. As for mystic abilities, Fang Qingshan couldn't care less. He couldn't let everything go as he wished. Of course, the treasure's coin wasn't the only one that contributed. The other treasures also contributed. Death Scythe, Passing Water Lamp, Permetha Bridge, Chaos Demonic Horn, Shocking Thunder Flag, 10,000 Beast Formation Breaking Drum, and even the Bell of Chaos and the 25th tier Red Lotus of Fire were able to unleash their power. Although Fang Qingshan used the Bell of Chaos, the 25th tier Red Lotus of Fire, and the Great Void Armor as 3 lines of defense, their main function was defense. However, this didn't mean that they had no offensive power. After all, the Bell of Chaos, the 25th tier Red Lotus of Fire, and the Great Void Armor were different. The latter was purely a defensive treasure, while the former two were offensive and defensive in one. Fang Qingshan only used their physical bodies for defense. In terms of offense, the Bell of Chaos had the power to suppress the primordial world, distort the space-time power, evolve the mysteries of Hongjun Tiandao, and refine the earth, water, fire, and wind. As for the Red Lotus of Fire, although it didn't have as many offensive skills as the Bell of Chaos, a single Hellfire attack was enough to make one feel uneasy. The power of the Karmic Fire, just based on its rank, was enough to harm an immortal realm expert. Not to mention the strangeness of the Karmic Fire, it was like maggots on the bones. Once touched by it, unless you had merit, glass body, or special methods, even if you didn't burn to death, your strength would be greatly reduced. Chapter 1338. Layers of Weakening. First, the Treasure Fall coin dropped more than half of its treasures, weakening some of the mystiques. Then came the Passing Water Lamp, the Bridge of the Other Shore, the Bell of Chaos, the Drum of 10,000 Beasts, and the Soundwave attack, indirectly weakening the enemy's attacks. Then, they faced the Death Scythe and the Horn of Chaos head-on. Layer after layer, wave after wave, wave after wave, without end. One side was disintegrating, while the other side was advancing with indomitable will. Both sides exuded terrifying pressure, like two great Daos colliding. Every time they collided, there would be an unprecedented commotion. It was not any weaker than Yang Mei's last Thunder Tribulation. In fact, it was even more powerful and much more powerful. In this collision, the Death Scythe, Primal Chaos, Demonic Horn, and all the other offensive weapons blossomed with sharp light. Blade Light, Horn Edge, Thunder Might, Grindstone of Life and Death. All sorts of attacks were peerless. The formation Breaking Drum of 10,000 Beasts and the Bell of Primal Chaos were like mourning sounds that buried the void. They adjusted the frequency, causing the void to tremble and disintegrate the opponent's attacks. The attacks of those immortal realm experts were also powerful. Even if they were weakened, the reason why they were called immortal realm experts was because their Sky Pillar of Law had become Immortal Sky Pillar. Their magic power was filled with immortal rhythm. When they used their divine abilities, their tenacity wasn't something that primordial immortal magic power could compare to. It was like the difference between acquired spirit energy and connate spirit energy. Compared to immemorial mana was like karmic fire. Like maggots in the bones, it was not easy to extinguish. Furthermore, the divine ability that he used was also extremely powerful, especially for these rogue cultivators who were not from major sects. Cultivating a divine ability was much easier than obtaining a supreme treasure. Therefore, even though some people did not have numinous treasures, their mystiques were not weak at all. After all, some mystiques were not weaker than numinous treasures. For example, the Duqian Thunder could not compare to the 3 treasures of creation. Therefore, when these mystiques landed, the void also shattered and collapsed, and they were even more ferocious. For a moment, one left and one right, one front and one back, the 2 attacks intertwined. They entangled. When they collided, the destructive power was terrifying. The void collapsed directly, turning into countless turbulent flows that spread out continuously. The eternal heavenly vessels formation, which had been set up to trap Fang Qingshan, was instantly shattered by the shockwaves. The timeless ark seemed to have become a small boat in the middle of a vast ocean, unsure of when it would be swept away by the waves. In the end, even though these supreme treasures weren't ordinary, especially with the eternal lightning pool providing them with sufficient power, they were able to display the power they should have. However, he was still fighting one against many, and he was outnumbered. In the end, Even though he had the will, he lacked the strength. Even if the treasure fall coin caught others off guard, it would still be able to kill them. But in the end, after a moment of stalemate, Fang Qingshan's timeless arc was the first to retreat. There was no need to talk about the treasure fall coin, because Fang Qingshan had retreated quickly. Like the Zodion star array diagram and the 9-turn yellow river array diagram, did not suffer any other damage other than having to suppress the spiritual treasure stored in the divine furnace. However, it was also because the eternal divine furnace needed to suppress the 8 undying realm experts and more than 10 level 2 supreme treasures. As a result, the eternal heavenly arc's power had been drawn away. If it was at its peak, it would have been relatively better. However, if the timeless arc was at its peak, the enemy would definitely be stronger. Therefore, one peck, one drink, it depended on who had the bigger pros and cons. Right now, suppressing a portion of the enemy would definitely be more beneficial to Fang Qingshan. As for the Death Scythe and the Thunderous Flag, they were directly knocked away. Not only were they knocked away, but their radiance dimmed, and they were also damaged. If not for the timeless arc support, it would probably take tens of thousands of years to repair them. The Permitha Bridge, the Passing Water Lamp, and the Bell of Chaos were also broken. However, the Red Karmic Fire Lotus attack made the Undying Realm experts panic for a while. After all, these people had a lot of karma on them. The Karmic Fire was their nemesis. Especially if they accidentally got infected by it, it would not be easy to get rid of it. After all, it was easier to invite a god and then to send him away. After the Death Scythe's attack was broken, the remaining attacks continued to fall towards the Timeless Arkansas. However, before they could even get close, they were stopped by the 3 lines of defense outside the Timeless Arkansas. First was the Red Karmic Fire Lotus. It bloomed into 25 petals, bewitching like fire, layer by layer. In an instant, it evolved into a kingdom of lotus flowers. One flower wilted, another bloomed. At the same time, it was both defensive and offensive. The karmic fire could continuously burn and attack. After being weakened by the Red Karmic Fire Lotus and the Bell of Chaos, it was weakened. However, seeing the Zodion star on the surface, those who did not know would think that the Zodion star formation was unfolding. Mountains and rivers, earth, desolation, myriad races, wind, rain, thunder, lightning, earth, wind, and fire. It was as if there was a chaotic world between the two. The Bell of Chaos was a defensive treasure that stood above one's head. It was invincible. Moreover, its defense was different from ordinary defensive treasures. It was like Yang Mei's Void Transference, which could reflect a portion of the attack. In an instant, the 5-colored light illuminated the sky. The sacred power of the chaos shook the universe. If this was not enough to stop the attack, there was still the 3rd line of defense formed by the Great Void Immortal Armor. Countless Tao runes and Taoist rhymes could be seen changing on the scales. Strands of profound qi flowed on the scales, revealing an unbelievable ability that formed a barrier that was like a suit of armor. This was a pure defensive treasure. Although the grade of the Great Void Immortal Armor was not as high as the Bell of Chaos and the Red Karmic Fire Lotus, it was different. However, everyone had their own specialties. The defense of the Great Void Immortal Armor was not weak at all. In fact, it was well-rounded. The remaining attacks could not penetrate the defense of the Great Void Immortal Armor. Instead, with each collision, the power of the attacks, which had already run out of momentum, was being depleted rapidly. After being weakened by the Coin of Treasurefall, the attacks collided with the Death Scythe and then the Red Karmic Fire Lotus and the Bell of Chaos. Finally, they were completely blocked by the Great Void Immortal Armor. Bam! In just a breath's time, these attacks were completely destroyed. If not for the fact that the Timeless Arc had been knocked back tens of thousands of feet, one would have thought that nothing had happened. As the Timeless Arc advanced to the supreme level, the Bell of Chaos and the Red Karmic Fire Lotus were upgraded to level 2 treasures. The weakness of the Timeless Arc, which was originally more offensive than defensive, had been greatly improved. With the defense of these 3 treasures, the Life and Death Gourd and the Astral Umbrella of Life and Death, the Cauldron of Heaven and Earth, and the defense of the Timeless Arc itself, there were a total of 5 lines of defense. The defense was so strong that it could not withstand the attack of a level 3 treasure. However, among the level 2 treasures, there were only a handful that could break its defense. Chapter 1339. It was a matter of fact. Fong Qingshan was only talking about treasures that could suppress the timeless Arkansas. But no matter how good a treasure was, it still needed someone to use it. Although the timeless Ark had the eternal spirit Thunder Emperor, it was still more or less affected by its host, Fong Qingshan. Because Fong Qingshan's cultivation wasn't at the immortal realm, he also couldn't fully display the supreme level timeless Ark's true power. Similarly, those level 2 treasures, in the hands of normal immortals and titled immortals, couldn't display the same power. In the hands of normal immortals, even a top level 2 treasure or even a level 3 treasure might not be able to do anything to the timeless Arkansas. But if it was someone like Jiang Mingyue's brother Jiang Bawang, even a level 2 high-quality treasure might not be able to resist the timeless Arkansas. This was what it meant to have different lives for different people and different treasures. However, after Fong Qingshan's cultivation reached the immortal realm with the timeless Ark, he wouldn't dare to say that he was unstoppable. But in this big world, there were very few people who could do anything to him. Even if he wanted to leave, as long as he wasn't surrounded by many people like today, or trapped in a formation, he could go anywhere in this big world. Of course, this was a story for another time. Although Fong Qingshan relied on the timeless Ark to safely withstand this wave of attacks, and even suppressed 8 immortal realm experts, taking away many of their treasures. But similarly, apart from suppressing people and taking away treasures, he didn't harm the rest of the people at all. Instead, it made them angry and vigilant against a common enemy. After all, Fong Qingshan was the one who took away the Dharma treasure of the other party. These people weren't disciples of famous sects. To have a level 2 treasure in their hands was already a blessing from the heavens. Even if they were damaged, they would feel uncomfortable for half a day. Now that it was taken away by Fong Qingshan, how could they not be anxious? Sky-covering veil, thousand sword cut, imprisoning finger, wind-fire disaster, red dust immeasurable. After these people's attacks did not succeed, they did not hesitate at all and immediately attacked again. This time, in order to guard against losing money, these people did not use their spiritual treasures. Instead, they all used their divine abilities or battle skills. Not only did the power not decrease, it increased instead. Although it might be a divine ability or a battle technique, it was still within the range of the treasure fall coin's weakening range. But from the lessons of the past, it seemed that it was not as easy to restrain as the numinous treasure. Of course, this was because they didn't understand the treasure fall coin at all. It didn't matter if it was a divine ability or a spirit treasure. The most important thing was that going too far was as bad as not going far enough. The eternal God furnace had already suppressed 8 undying beings and more than 10 rank 2 treasures. If he took out the treasure fall coin, it would be hard to avoid the danger of it collapsing from within. Rumble. As it spun, a thin veil fell down, covering the sun and the sky. The thick clouds inside seemed to be able to make people sink into the eternal night. Hundreds of millions of sword auras of various colors burst out. There was a finger as large as a heavenly pillar. At the tip of the finger, there was an immeasurable great Tao imprisoned within. Natural disasters, wind and fire swept out. The wind fueled the fire, and the fire borrowed the power of the wind. It was unknown whether or not they had already gotten used to each other after working together for the first time. All sorts of attacks slashed out like a tidal wave. They did not collide with each other and weaken each other. Instead, they seemed to subconsciously avoid each other, taking advantage of the gaps and trajectories. They slashed out in an indescribable way, either slashing or stabbing. In an instant, they spread out in the void, turning into a natural disaster storm that rushed directly towards the timeless Arkansas. Condensed attacks slashed down one after another. The void was cut open, and countless dazzling lights shone through the void. Fang Qingshan naturally did not want to be outdone. The thunder-gathering tower was operating. Within the eternal pool of lightning, out of the 50% of power that had been used up, he had now replenished 30%. This time, the situation was even more serious, but he had no better trump cards. Therefore, Fang Qingshan could only increase his output once again, using 70% of his power to attack with all his might. After this time, even with the timeless arc's recovery speed, it could not attack at full power again. What was most difficult to accept was that even if they tried their best, they would still end up empty-handed in the end. Without the Treasure-Fall coin to disrupt and weaken them, these attacks were unstoppable. First, they broke through the Death Scythe, then the Life and Death Gourd, the Red Lotus of Fire, the Bell of Chaos, and the Great Void Immortal Armor. Finally, they landed on the Timeless Arc's main body. Fortunately, the Timeless Arc's main body's defense was stronger than the previous few lines of defense. Dao songs, Sanskrit chants, blessings. All sorts of wishes surged, golden lotuses bloomed, and a pagoda bloomed. The attacks landed on the Golden Lotus Pagoda, causing countless golden lotuses to wither and the light of wishes to be cut open. This was already the last line of defense. If these attacks managed to break into the Timeless Arc, it would be very troublesome. The losses would not be mentioned. As mentioned before, the stronger a being was, the harder it was to recover once it was injured. Therefore, if these attacks were allowed to wreak havoc within the Timeless Arc, it would be a disaster. Therefore, Fang Qingshan exerted all his strength. He sent the remaining 7 layers of power, as well as the 2 layers that had just recovered, into the Timeless Arc's main body. In an instant, the withered golden lotuses bloomed once more. Countless beings cheered and prayed. Endless light of wishes exploded. The attacks were blocked outside the Timeless Arkansas. You attack, I defend. You advance, I do not retreat. They desperately wanted to destroy these heretics, or at least drive them out of the Timeless Arkansas. Blessings did not come in pairs, and misfortune did not come alone. At this moment, the 8 Undying Realm experts suppressed in the Eternal Divine Furnace, as well as a dozen second-level treasures, seemed to have seized the opportunity to rebel. This caused Fang Qingshan to be in a terrible predicament, adding insult to injury. Again, seeing this, the Undying Realm experts' eyes lit up. They knew that with so many of them attacking together, even if Fang Qingshan's Timeless Arc was heaven-defying, what could it do? Wasn't this? He couldn't hold on any longer. While everyone heaved a sigh of relief, they didn't delay at all. Once again, they wanted to achieve success in one fell swoop. Fortunately, after using 2 big moves in a row, they didn't have much magic power left. After all, even the Timeless Arc was struggling, let alone them. Therefore, not to mention the second attack, even the first one wasn't as good as the last one. Even so, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. Not only was the Timeless Arc sent flying backward, but the entire Timeless Arc was also shaking violently. Damn it, go! Fang Qingshan's heart was in his throat. Without much time to think, he hurriedly threw the All-Heaven chessboard in. They complemented each other, like a tiger that had grown wings. With the addition of the All-Heaven chessboard's new power, the Timeless Arc finally stabilized. However, when those attacks landed on the Timeless Arc, although they continuously tore small wounds, they were quickly healed by the Timeless Arkansas. It was impossible to kill in one blow. Chapter 1340. Damn it, if I do it again, the Timeless Arc's defense will probably be broken. Although he managed to resist it again, there was no joy on Fang Qingshan's face. Instead, his heart sank because he knew that he was almost at his limit. Even though he had added the All-Heavens chessboard into the mix, the All-Heavens chessboard was no longer on the same level as his eternal heavenly vessel. Even if he were to fuse them together, it wouldn't be the same as before. Just now, more than half of the power of Providence in the All-Heaven chessboard had been used up. Therefore, although he had solved the urgent problem, he could only stop it from boiling. He could not take drastic measures. Moreover, if the power of the All-Heaven chessboard was used up, his last escape route would be cut off. For a moment, A hair-raising sense of danger surged into the depths of his mind like a volcano eruption, causing Fang Qingshan's eyebrows to twitch nonstop. The sudden inspiration was no longer a dark cloud covering his head, but the arrival of the Grim Reaper. Fang Qingshan knew that he was really at his wit's end and was at his wit's end. If the reinforcements did not arrive, he would only have two options. One was to die, the other was to escape. Although the timeless arc was strong, it was only at the supreme level, and it had just leveled up. On the other hand, he had to face a group of immortal experts with rich combat experience. Even though he wasn't a legend ranker or a disciple of a famous sect, he was still at least somewhat weak. Immortal experts were immortal. Being able to hold on until now was already his limit. This was all thanks to the unexpected use of the bipartite formation diagram and the treasure-fall coin. He had caught the other party off guard, not to mention being attacked. Fang Qingshan felt that the suppressed spiritual treasures and the 8 immortal experts were about to break free. What should I do now? The situation was urgent, and it was pressing. Fang Qingshan's mind began to churn frantically. Even with his powerful primordial spirit, he actually felt a little dizzy for a moment. It was evident from this. Ideas popped up one after another like mushrooms after the rain, but they were quickly dispelled like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. Because, no matter how he schemed, he could not break out of this predicament. Sai, senior brother, it's time to use your trump card. In the end, the only way that Fang Qingshan could think of to delay was to use Jiang Mingyue's trump card. However, he also knew that although Jiang Mingyue's trump card was powerful, it was only a drop in the bucket. Otherwise, he would have used it from the very beginning. If your reinforcements still haven't arrived after you've used all your trump cards, I'm afraid that we'll really be doomed this time, Fang Qingshan said in a deep voice. At the same time, he secretly opened the celestial chessboard's passageway. He was prepared to escape if the situation was not right. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have the chance to use it when the time came. This could be considered his last life-saving measure. In the end, Fang Qingshan did not place all his hopes on others. He would never think that the Dao sect would avenge him even if he died, because that would be meaningless. Of course, he wouldn't use the all-heaven chessboard until the very last moment. As for the reason, it was already explained in the past. Junior brother, don't worry. My big brother will be here soon. Although Fang Qingshan said it heroically, Jiang Mingyue did not feel the same way this time. Instead, she was overjoyed because Jiang Boang was finally arriving. Really, Fang Qingshan was also delighted. He asked in unison with Yang, Mei, and Uncle Wang, "Who dares to bully my brother? Do you think there's no one in the Dao sect?" Before Jiang Mingyue could answer, they heard a deafening roar that rolled like thunder from afar. It seemed to be even more terrifying than the sound wave attack of the drum of 10,000 beasts and the bell of chaos. Following that, an extremely tyrannical aura filled with a unique rhythm that was very familiar swept over like a natural disaster from the end of the world. The invisible aura was extremely terrifying, and it swept over like a destructive wave. Like an array diagram, it instantly enveloped the entire battlefield. It was filled with a unique rhythm that was familiar because Fang Qingshan had already sensed from Jiang Mingyue and Uncle Wang that it was a unique concept that belonged to the Dao sect. However, the imprints on Jiang Mingyue and Uncle Wang were much weaker than those of the newcomer. The natural disaster from the end of the world was naturally because the aura made everything tremble. It had a feeling that it could suppress the entire battlefield, push through the void, and sweep through the past and future. This made Fang Qingshan think of Dongfang Shuo, the elder of the Dongfang clan at the auction. He did not know if it was because Dongfang Shuo did not make a move, or if there was some other reason. But in any case, Fang Qingshan had a feeling that the newcomer seemed to be a level stronger than Dongfang Shuo. Oh no, the reinforcements from the Dao sect are here. I was wondering why my eyebrows kept twitching when I was about to win. So that's why. Damn it. I was so close, but I failed at the last step. I was so close to success. Yeah, just a little bit more. How could they come so soon? What a coincidence. Let's go. judging by the aura of the newcomer. I'm afraid he has the title of immortal, and his cultivation is at least at the peak of immortal. Jiang Overlord had not yet appeared, but his roar from afar had already made the immortal experts who were besieging Fang Shan and the others tremble in fear. Because at this moment, the tables had turned. It was their turn to enjoy the feeling of powerlessness that Fang Shan felt when facing the danger of the god of death. There was no response from the heavens and earth. There was no time to think, and they could no longer care about Fang Shan, Jiang Mingyue, and the others. These people used their fastest speed and used all their strength. They even used their trump cards to escape in all directions. In an instant, streams of light could be seen streaking across the void like meteors. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared without a trace. Run, run with all their might. If they did not escape now, once the unpredictable expert arrived, they would definitely die if they did not escape. As for the weapons and the 8 people who were suppressed by Fang Shan in the Timeless Ark, they could no longer care about them. The plan had already failed. They had even given up on Fang Shan and Jiang Mingyue. Naturally, they could not care about the others. In the end, the 8 people who were trapped in the array did not have any relationship with them. Even if they did, so what? Husband and wife were birds in the same forest. When disaster struck, they would fly separately. At this moment, it was better for the Taoists to die than to die. As for the weapons, they did feel a little heartache. After all, that was half of their assets. However, the impending danger told them that if they did not leave now, they would not be able to. Although the weapons were good, they were still worldly possessions. If they lost them now, they could always buy another one in the future. Even if they lost their lives, everything would be over. If they lost their lives, then everything would be over. Therefore, companions were precious, and treasures were even more valuable. If it was for their lives, they could give up both. Chapter 1341. Bullying the Weak. Using numbers to bully the few. Good, very good. Run? Do you think you still have a chance to escape since I'm already here? Seeing these immortal realm experts flee, Fang Shan, Yang Mei, and Jiang Mingyue heaved a sigh of relief, just as they were thinking if they should stop them. After all, these people almost forced them into a desperate situation. It would be a lie to say that they did not want to take revenge. Moreover, as far as Fang Shan was concerned, the first thing he thought of was to rob them. As the saying goes, a horse will not get fat without grass at night, and a man will not get rich without a windfall. Especially after the advancement of the Timeless Ark, his treasures were completely empty. This feeling was especially obvious. However, before Fang Shan and the others could make a move, Jiang Overlord's voice was heard again. It was as cold as a fiend, filled with an astonishing and violent might. Like rolling thunder, it fell into everyone's ears and hearts. It shook these people to the point that they almost fell out of the secret technique. Since you dare to attack my Tao, sex disciple, you should be prepared to die. Even dying 100 times is not enough. Hearing Jiang Overlord's voice, which was like the voice of Yama, the expressions of those escaping immortal realm experts changed drastically. They all reached out and patted their chests, using some forbidden secret technique to increase their speed of escape. Unfortunately, at this moment, it was completely useless. From the moment Jiang Overlord arrived, their fates were already decided. Although Jiang Overlord had not arrived yet, his terrifying aura had already enveloped a radius of tens of thousands of miles. However, that terrifying aura had already enveloped everything within a radius of tens of thousands of li. It was as if this place had become his domain, and everything was under his control. Right after that, more than 10 immortal realm experts who had run away twisted their bodies like marionettes. They were like headless flies that had lost their way. No matter how fast they ran, they returned to their original spots. Such a strange situation, not to mention them. Even Fang Shan and the others who were watching felt uncomfortable. Naturally, their minds were about to explode, and they spat out mouthfuls of blood. Their divine abilities were broken, and their bodies were squeezed by an extremely strong and invisible force. In an instant, Their bodies were hollowed out like balloons that had been punctured. They instantly shriveled up. Upon seeing this, Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei were instantly dumbfounded, and their eyes widened like copper bells. Although he knew that as long as the reinforcements arrived, his safety would be guaranteed. But at this moment, he was still shocked. Knowing someone by reputation is not as good as meeting them in person, and meeting them in person is even better than knowing someone by reputation. After all, since Overlord Jiang spoke until now, everything had happened in the blink of an eye. It was so sudden and so shocking. No one could react in time. This was especially so for the power that enveloped the entire area. Although it was not targeted at Fang Qingshan, it still made him unconsciously feel a sense of horror. It was as if he was about to be destroyed, causing him to tremble uncontrollably. He knew very well that even if the timeless arc had advanced to become an honorable, he still wouldn't be able to withstand this power. In fact, he might even be breached with a single blow. As for the celestial chessboard, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to use it, because Fang Qingshan could feel that this power had the power to confine time and space and confine everything. If it really wanted to target him, he was afraid that when the time came, not to mention summoning the celestial chessboard and opening the escape route, even moving his primordial spirit would be difficult. Fortunately, it was a friend and not an enemy. When that incomparably terrifying aura burst forth, it was as though it was filled with spirituality as it swept past Fang Qingshan and the eternal heavenly vessel. It did not cause any pressure or harm to them. Instead, it was like a gentle breeze. Facing such a situation, because the timeless arc had advanced to the supremacy realm, his cultivation had broken through the peak immortal realm, and he had even suppressed 8 immortal realm experts. He had fought with dozens of immortal realm experts for a long time. Facing such a situation, the pride that had just risen in his heart was instantly extinguished. Before he could float far, he was struck down to the ground. No matter how strong you are, there will always be someone stronger. In the end, I still have too many shortcomings. Don't forget my original intention. I should maintain a heart as if I was walking on thin ice, and do things bravely and diligently. Fang Qingshan sighed. Instead, he felt relieved and relaxed a lot. It seemed that his state of mind had improved a little, and the realm that he had just broken through had stabilized a lot. This was an unexpected surprise. Although the improvement of the eternal blessing did not shake the foundation, it did not mean that it did not have any side effects. It was just that compared to other things, it was not as serious. Because the strength increased too quickly, he could not adapt and thus lost. He just needed to adjust in time. However, because it was not that serious, it did not attract people's attention and thus was ignored. Many a little makes a mickle, and after many a little makes a mickle, it was probably enough to cause a headache. Not mentioning these, Fang Qingshan was shocked by the appearance of Jiang Overlord. Jiang Mingyue and Uncle Wang, on the other hand, did not feel strange at all. After all, they were already used to it. Not to mention that Jiang Overlord was only at the peak immortal realm. In the Dao sect, they had seen many divine emperors, and even peak divine emperors. After all, coming from a big force like the Dao sect, in terms of vision and knowledge, Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei could not compare. Brother, you're finally here. If you didn't come, you would never see your brother again. Jiang Mingyue's voice was filled with a rare trace of a weak and imperceptible little girl's excitement. As soon as her voice fell, a dazzling brilliance flashed in front of the timeless arc, bringing along with it the sound of heaven and earth shattering. Following that, a figure that was somewhat similar to Jiang Mingyue, but with a completely different aura appeared. However, it could be seen that this person was also dressed in men's clothes. If Jiang Mingyue was a woman dressed as a man, it might give people the illusion that she was a scholar. Then, Jiang Overlord was completely deceiving himself. Her hot body made it impossible for her to hide it. However, no one dared to win the slightest bit in front of this hot body, because when everyone saw him, they were immediately stunned by his aura, which was like that of an overlord in the pugilistic world, and completely forgot that he was a woman with a hot body. Compared to Jiang Mingyue, if Jiang Mingyue was a beautiful moon, magnanimous, hardy, gentle, and like a gentleman, then Jiang Overlord would naturally be the blazing sun, strong, heroic, domineering, and looking down on the world. Haha, it's my fault, it's my fault. I apologize to you. However, at this moment, when Jiang Overlord faced Jiang Mingyue, he did not have the domineering aura from before. He laughed boldly, and his voice was filled with pampering, a hint of relief and joy. Jiang Mingyue snorted coldly. It was the relaxation of escaping from death and the dependence of seeing a family member and a backer. However, at the end of the day, he was also a man, so he was not overly pretentious. After calming himself down, he introduced both parties. Chapter 1342. Big Brother, let me introduce you. These two are Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei, who are about to join our Tao will sex intersect disciples. They have helped me twice. If it wasn't for them, you wouldn't be able to see your little brother today. Jiang Mingyue pointed at Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei. Yang Mei was overjoyed when he heard that. He knew that after his cultivation broke through to the immortal realm, his status would rise, and he could directly become an inner sect disciple if he joined the Dao sect. After all, Dao sect's outer sect disciples could directly become inner sect disciples after breaking through to the immortal realm. However, he was not a direct descendant of the Dao sect since he was young. Moreover, Jiang Mingyue had already recommended Fang Qingshan and rewarded him with the 5 Virtues Fate Lamp. With this secret technique, he survived the Heavenly Decay 5, but he did not have a recommendation. As for this time, although Jiang Mingyue said that she would get their help, it was all on the surface. But this was all on the surface because even without Jiang Mingyue, they would still fight with their lives on the line. After all, this concerned their life and death, and the greatest credit belonged to Fang Qingshan. Therefore, he did not dare to take credit. He had originally thought that after this incident, he would at most be able to enter the Dao sect more smoothly. However, if he wanted to enter the inner sect, he would probably have to wait for a period of time. Not to mention waiting for Fang Qingshan to gain a firm foothold. He would at least have to test him a little. He did not expect happiness to come so suddenly. Jiang Mingyue actually said that he was an inner sect disciple. He did not believe that it was a slip of the tongue, and Jiang Overlord did not interrupt or deny it. In fact, this was not surprising. First of all, Yang Mei's own strength had won Jiang Mingyue's recognition. After all, not everyone could survive the high-level immortal tribulation, especially as an itinerant cultivator. Those who could survive the high-level immortal tribulation were extraordinary. As long as they did not die in the future, their future was limitless. Moreover, as an itinerant cultivator, Yang Mei had 2 level 2 treasures. Moreover, they were not ordinary, but low-level level 2 treasures. This was already commendable. One had to know that many disciples of famous sects were not as wealthy as him. Moreover, it was naturally this time they had gone through life and death together. As the saying went, life and death together, they had gone through trials and tribulations together. It was nothing more than this. Although Jiang Mingyue had recommended Fang Qingshan as an outstanding direct descendant of the Jiang family, it was not difficult for her to get a place for Yang Mei, especially when this disciple was extraordinary. The reason why he didn't do this before was because he hadn't seen Yang Mei's true strength. Secondly, it wasn't related to that step, but now he was satisfied. As for why Jiang Overlord did not refute, it was because he had complete trust in Jiang Mingyue. Moreover, even if it was for the sake of rewards, it was not a big deal to give up 2 recommendation slots. Junior brother Yang Mei, junior brother Fang, this is my big brother, the direct disciple of the Dao sect, Jiang Overlord. Jiang Mingyue pointed at the newcomer and said, "Good, not bad." As a rogue cultivator, he was able to pass the high-level immortal tribulation and reach the immortal realm. Even if he cultivated for a period of time, it would not be difficult for him to prove his Dao title. The other one is even better. He is actually the owner of the Timeless Ark in Sa. Moreover, with the Supreme Timeless Ark, he was able to withstand the attacks of dozens of Immortal Realm experts. Although they were all ordinary Immortal Realm experts, there were many of them, and there were even late Immortal Realm experts. Good. Jiang Overlord sized them up slightly, and Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei seemed to be completely naked in front of him. There were no secrets at all, which made the two of them feel a chill down their spines. At this moment, the supreme treasures on them, the Chaos Bead and the Heaven Chessboard, shot out a divine light at the same time, covering them and blocking Jiang Overlord's sight. Jiang Overlord's eyes flashed. Fortunately, he didn't want to pry into their privacy, so he just glanced at them. This made Fang Qingshan and Jiang Mingyue heave a sigh of relief. After all, no one wanted to completely expose themselves in front of others, not even their loved ones. As a true disciple of the Dao Will sect, I represent the Dao Will sect to welcome you two junior brothers to join us. As Mingyue's big brother, I represent Mingyue to thank you two for your help. As he spoke, Jiang Overlord even bowed to Fang Qingshan and Jiang Mingyue. Thinking about it, if something really happened to Jiang Mingyue, it would be too late for regrets. Therefore, he was sincerely grateful to Fang Qingshan and Jiang Mingyue. As for what Jiang Mingyue said about them being disciples who were about to join the Dao Will sect, Jiang Overlord didn't care. Firstly, since Jiang Mingyue said so, he would naturally support them unconditionally. Furthermore, with Fang Qingshan's aptitude, especially the combat power that Fang Qingshan had displayed earlier, even the Dao Will sect at its peak would flock to them like a flock of ducks, let alone the Dao Will sect that was currently in a weakened state. If they didn't rope in such talents immediately, what were they waiting for? Jiang Overlord secretly compared himself. If it were him back then, he was afraid that he wouldn't be as good as Fang Qingshan. The master of the Timeless Arc was indeed a group of people that couldn't be judged by common sense. Once he grew up, he would definitely be a powerhouse. Although the consumption of resources would be greater, the chances of him becoming a pillar of the sect would be greater. Jiang Overlord thought to himself, as a rogue cultivator, Fang Qingshan was able to refine the Timeless Arc to such an extent. If he had the support of the Dao Will sect, wouldn't he be like a fish in water, like a tiger that had grown wings and soared to the sky? The most important thing was that with Fang Qingshan and the Timeless Arc, if the Dao Will sect really faced a crisis, as long as they went all out, they would be able to reach the God Emperor level in the shortest time possible. By then, they would be able to protect the Dao Will sect for thousands of years. As for why they didn't choose to accept the master of the Timeless Arc, it wasn't that they didn't want to, but they simply couldn't find one. First of all, there weren't many masters of the Timeless Arkansas looking at the entire universe. There were probably only a few thousand. Moreover, because the Dao Will sect had declined, many masters of the Timeless Arc would choose a better force to join. In addition, because the Dao Will sect had declined, it hadn't reached its limit, so there wasn't too much of a rush. Therefore, they had never found the master of the Timeless Arc to accept them. However, today, Fang Qingshan was a pleasant surprise. Greetings, senior brother. Seeing Jiang Overlord bow, Fang Qingshan and Jiang Overlord hurriedly avoided him and returned the bow. We don't deserve your thanks, senior brother. After all, this is also for us. After all, whether it was joining the Dao Will sect, they needed to rely on Jiang Mingyue. At the same time, saving Jiang Mingyue was also saving themselves. After all, those immortal bandits wouldn't just let them go after Jiang Mingyue. All right. We're all from the same sect, so there's no need to be so pretentious. You help me, and I help you, so there's no need to thank me. Jiang Mingyue was a little impatient seeing them exchange pleasantries. Let's talk about how to deal with these people first. Chapter 1343. Senior brother is right. Little brother is right. Fang Qingshan and Jiang Overlord looked at each other and smiled. Neither of them were wishy-washy people, especially Jiang Overlord. If it wasn't for Jiang Mingyue, he wouldn't have been so nice. Turning to look at the dozens of Immortal Realm experts suppressed by Jiang Overlord, the group's faces turned cold. These people looked like dead people. To Jiang Mingyue, he had never encountered such a dangerous situation since he was young. After all, he had the Jiang family and Dao will sect to protect him, and he had the sense of danger physique to avoid danger. This time, it was a wake-up call and a lesson for him. To Yang Mei, the danger this time was probably second only to the great tribulation of creation. First, he went through the immortal tribulation, then he was surrounded by dozens of immortal realm experts. If it wasn't for Fang Qingshan's timeless arc advancement and Jiang Overlord's timely arrival, he might have really died before he could succeed. There was no road to heaven and no door to hell. To Fang Qingshan, in the past, he relied on the timeless arc and the heavenly chessboard. Even if he encountered any danger he couldn't handle, he could at least use the heavenly chessboard to escape. But this time, he almost couldn't even escape. To Jiang Bawang, Jiang Mingyue was the princess whom he and his family had pampered since she was young, but she was almost killed by these people's schemes. The hatred in his heart was no less than Fang Qingshan's, especially since these people knew that Jiang Mingyue was from Dao Wu's sect, yet they still dared to attack her. This showed that they didn't put Dao Wu's sect in their eyes at all. To put it simply, it was a personal grudge. To put it in a big way, it was to protect the sect's dignity. Whether it was for public or private reasons, he had to use thunderous methods. If he didn't punish them, others would follow suit in the future, and that would be the real trouble. I said that since they dared to attack my Dao Wu's sect's disciple, then they should be prepared to die, or even die 100 times over. Jiang Overlord narrowed his eyes and said sternly. In the ears of the immortal realm experts, it was like the voice of the devil or the voice of death. Not just them, but also the forces behind them. Their deaths are not to be regretted. I will find them one by one. Although my Dao Wu's sect has declined, it's also not something that can be bullied by any Tom, Dick, or Harry. If you dare to reach out, not only should you be prepared to have your claws chopped off, you should also be prepared to be implicated. Kill one to serve as a warning to others. Jiang Overlord's voice wasn't concealed at all, although it wasn't loud. It was like the echoes of a valley as it reverberated through the void that was enveloped by the domain. Jiang Overlord's eyes were like torches as he stared fixedly in one direction. His aura was condensed as he was ready to strike at any moment. Seeing Jiang Overlord's unusual behavior, Fang Qingshan and Jiang Mingyue's hearts thumped. There was no one in all directions. Their nascent divinities, secret arts, and spirit treasures could not detect any aura. But looking at Jiang Overlord's expression, it was obvious that there was another expert in the dark. This was out of their expectations. Most importantly, even Jiang Overlord was so cautious about this person. One could only imagine how powerful the person in the dark was. If they had attacked earlier, they were afraid that, at the thought of this, Fang Qingshan and the others couldn't help but shiver. A chill instantly ran from their toes to the top of their heads. They were right, but also wrong. Yes, there was indeed someone hiding in the dark. Moreover, this person was no ordinary person. Even Jiang Overlord wasn't very confident. This was because this person's cultivation had already reached the God Emperor realm. Although he had just entered the God Emperor realm, a God Emperor was still a God Emperor. The difference between a God Emperor and a peak immortal realm expert was far greater than that between an immortal and a peak primordial chaos expert. Even with Jiang Overlord's prestigious background and peak immortal realm strength, he wasn't very confident, especially when Jiang Mingyue was by his side. No, it wasn't because he didn't want to attack, but because he couldn't do it in time. After all, this person had also arrived after Jiang Overlord. Fang Qingshan's initial guess was confirmed. Those who were chasing them weren't just those primordial chaos experts, immortal realm experts, and God Emperors. It was just that at the beginning, this God Emperor, like the others, didn't take them seriously at all. Therefore, they had a certain amount of time to escape. Later on, they were delayed by some matters, so they rushed over at the last moment. Therefore, it wasn't that he didn't want to attack, but that he had arrived too late. Finally, after weighing the pros and cons, he didn't continue to attack, but left quietly. Firstly, Jiang Overlord was different from Jiang Mingyue. Jiang Overlord was a true disciple of Dao Wu's sect. He had a small reputation in the entire heavens, and his cultivation had reached the peak immortal realm. He had escaped unscathed from the god Emperor many times, so he wasn't confident that he could make Jiang Overlord stay. Moreover, he felt that it wasn't worth offending Dao will sect for a windstorm sword token that could be obtained by other means. Finally, he had a feeling that if he dared to attack, he would be skinned alive even if he didn't die today. Therefore, this god Emperor, who hadn't shown his face since the beginning, quietly retreated. He came in a hurry and left in a hurry. He came quietly and left quietly. Fortunately, he left quickly. Otherwise, as he had predicted, he probably wouldn't be able to leave today. This was because Jiang Mingyue had mentioned earlier that her elder brother, Jiang Overlord, was nearby. There was also a God Emperor Elder from Dao sect. Although Jiang Overlord couldn't beat a God Emperor with his cultivation, he had no problem delaying him. Once the God Emperor Elder caught up, the two of them would join forces. Even if Jiang Overlord couldn't make him stay, he would still be in serious trouble. After the God Emperor left, Jiang Overlord couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. After all, although he wasn't afraid, he was afraid that Jiang Mingyue would be hurt. Fortunately, due to the issue of benefits and his relationship with Dao's sect, he didn't attack and left directly after weighing the pros and cons. All right, we can't stay here for long. Detain these people first, and we'll make a decision after we settle down. Jiang Overlord didn't expect that there would be a God Emperor among the people who wanted to harm Jiang Mingyue and the others. His heart almost jumped out of his throat. If that person arrived first, Jiang Overlord didn't dare to imagine what would happen. All right, Fang Qingshan and Jiang Mingyue naturally had no objections to this. Who knew if that person would get dizzy and come back to kill them? However, with a wave of Jiang Overlord's hand, a dark void spaceship appeared next to him. It was domineering and gave off a feeling that it wasn't someone to be trifled with. Let's go back to Dao sect. Jiang Overlord waved his hand again and sent Jiang Mingyue, Fang Qingshan, Yang Mei, and the others into the void spaceship. It started up immediately and kept accelerating to its limit. Fast, fast, very fast. So fast that Fang Qingshan and the others felt a little dizzy from not being used to it. Even though the timeless art had advanced to become a supreme, in terms of speed alone, this void spaceship was much faster. Chapter 1344. Void Ship. As one of the three main methods of traveling through the void, although it couldn't compare to chaos transportation formations and wormholes, it definitely couldn't be slow. Void ships might be a little weaker in terms of attack and defense when traveling through the void, but their speed was definitely at the pinnacle of all treasures. After all, just these 2 points alone would make it meaningless if one was slow. First, the void was too vast. If one wasn't fast enough, who knew how long it would take to reach their destination? Moreover, if it was a large void ship, it would be fine if there were many people, but if one was traveling through the void alone, one couldn't relax at all. After a long time, one of the 4 disasters of the void, loneliness of the void, would probably arrive. Moreover, of the 36 stratagems, escape was the best. There were too many dangers in the void, and if one wasn't fast, how could one escape? Therefore, even if a spatial spaceship gave up on its other functions, it would still be able to increase its speed. Like other treasures, void ships were also divided into grades. Void ships had 4 grades: low, medium, high, and top. Low-grade void ships corresponded to Grade 1 treasures, while medium grade corresponded to Grade 2 treasures. High grade and top grade corresponded to Grade 3 and Grade 4 treasures respectively. Of course, apart from this, void ships were also divided into small, large, and giant models. Small ones were actually specially designed for individuals, while large ones were the most common public transportation for traveling through the void. As for giant ones, they were strategic weapons that were very, very rare. The void ship in Jiang Overlord's hands was naturally a small one, ranked middle grade. In other words, Jiang Overlord's void ship was a chaos treasure, even above Fang Qingshan's timeless Arkansas. After all, an exalted eternal heavenly vessel should be a first-grade treasure. It was just that Feng Qingshan's timeless arc had too deep of a foundation, and some of it had become a Grade 2 treasure. Traveling with a void ship wasn't as fast as using Chaos Realm transportation formations or wormholes. But, generally speaking, as long as it wasn't an emergency, very few people would use them all the time. After all, using Chaos Realm transportation formations and wormholes wasn't free. Using them once or twice wasn't a problem. But using them continuously, even a God Emperor couldn't bear the consumption. That was why there were giant void spaceships, which were used as strategic weapons. After all, wormholes were only a minority. The primal chaos world's teleportation array's consumption was directly related to the number of people being teleported. The more people there were, the greater the consumption. Although Jiang, Overlord, and the others did not have many people, there were more than dozens of chaotic world between the light chaotic world and the Dao, Sex Dao, chaotic world. That was hundreds or thousands of chaotic worlds. Fortunately, the void flying ship, which was a Grade 2 supreme treasure, was not slow. Feng Qingshan and the others, who had relaxed, took this opportunity to recuperate a little. Previously, they had been very tense. Tension and relaxation were the ways of literature and martial arts. Especially with an expert like Jiang Overlord around, Feng Qingshan and Yang may could learn a thing or two from him. Given their relationship with Jiang Mingyue, the fact that Jiang Mingyue was going to recommend them to join the Dao sect, as well as their own talents, Jiang Overlord was not stingy in giving them pointers. Besides, traveling through the void without doing anything or going into seclusion was a very boring thing to do. Thus, both the host and the guest enjoyed themselves along the way. Through the contact with Feng Qingshan and the others, Jiang Overlord had a clearer understanding of their talents. Feng Qingshan was not just the owner of the timeless Arkansas. Although his own talents could not be compared to those born sacred, he was definitely a first-class god's favored one. The same was true for Yang Mei. If not for his background, given his talents, if he had joined the Dao sect from the beginning, he would definitely have faced a top-notch thunder tribulation when he transcended the immortal tribulation. This could be seen from the questions the two of them asked from time to time. Every time they asked about the key points, they could draw inferences about other things from one instance and draw inferences about other things. These two top talents could be considered the best even in the Dao sect. Once they grew up, they would definitely become the mainstay of the Dao sect. As for Feng Qingshan and Yang Mei, they had benefited a lot. Of the two of them, one had broken through to the immortal realm, and the other had reached the peak of the primordial chaos realm. However, they did not know much about their future path. After all, based on their knowledge, the inheritance would at most stop at the peak of the primordial chaos. With Jiang Overlord, who was at the peak of the immortal realm, he could even escape unscathed from a divine emperor. If there were no accidents, he would definitely become a divine emperor or even a peak divine emperor. With the guidance of a giant who could compete for the position of the Dao sect leader in the future, the two of them had a deeper impression of the immortal realm. After joining the Dao sect, they could make up for their shortcomings in a more targeted manner and walk a path that was more suitable for them. There were only two characteristics of the infinite void. One was that it was vast and boundless. The other was that it was quiet and boundless. Because of its vastness, it was inconvenient to travel. Because of its quietness, there was the silent disaster of the four disasters of the void. Therefore, under normal circumstances, it was very difficult to hear any sound in the void. What could be seen was mostly darkness. There were only specks of mottled, firefly-like lights flickering in the depths of the darkness. Those were the chaotic worlds, which contained endless mysteries. However, although such mysteries were fascinating and people wanted to comprehend them all the time, it was somewhat similar to a wormhole. One could only look, but it was extremely difficult to comprehend. This was because one could not comprehend anything without reaching the immortal realm. Even if one was at the immortal realm, one could only understand the surface of it at most. Therefore, most of the time, when one saw such a scene, one could only watch the fun and see the scenery. Although the scenery was good, It was not the great Tao. After a long time, and looking at it for a long time, one would inevitably feel bored. It was like eating something delicious every day without changing its taste. Eating it several or even a dozen times a day, one would feel bored after eating it too many times. In the end, one would even want to vomit when looking at it or even thinking about it. Therefore, even the necessities of life, such as ordinary people's rice, would change from time to time. For example, dried rice or porridge. A black light rippled like water and flew across the dark and boundless void. It was incomparably fast and disappeared into the distance in the blink of an eye. Those who did not cultivate the eye technique and did not have a high enough level of cultivation would not be able to detect it at all. At some point, Fong Qingshan and Yang Mei, who were digesting Jiang Overlord's guidance, suddenly frowned and woke up from their cultivation. They all felt a calling that came from a distant place. It seemed to be a call from the unseen world, asking them to hurry over. As time went by, as the spaceship continued to move forward, the calling grew stronger and stronger. The two of them did not understand what was happening. They were at a loss. Just then, the spaceship that was flying at high speed suddenly stopped. Chapter 1345. This is how we arrived at the Tao intent chaotic world. Or did something happen? Fong Qingshan had yet to recover from the mysterious summoning when he sensed that the spaceship had stopped. He was even more shocked. According to what Jiang Overlord and Jiang Mingyue had said, they still had to sail for a period of time before they could reach their destination. Something had happened, but it didn't make sense. They didn't sense anything wrong at all, and their principal spirits didn't warn them either. They couldn't figure it out, so they walked out involuntarily. "Big brother, why did you stop? Is something wrong?" He heard Jiang Mingyue's question, so it wasn't because they had arrived at their destination. He was also disturbed by the spaceship's sudden stop. "There's a tower of titles here," Jiang Overlord explained. "I see." Jiang Mingyue was stunned at first, but then she understood. "You want junior brother Yang Mei and junior brother Fong to challenge the Tower of Titles?" "That's right." Jiang Overlord nodded. "Even if they don't challenge it, they can join a sect along the way. But since we've encountered it nearby, there's no reason not to go. Moreover, if they can challenge the Tower of Titles, it'll add to their chances of joining the Tao Intent sect. Moreover, with a title, they'll be blessed by Providence. Their cultivation will be faster, it'll be easier for them to break through, and they'll get more opportunities. It seems like we've been summoned by the Tower of Titles." Fong Qingshan and Yang Mei's heart skipped a beat as they thought of the mysterious summoning. The Tower of Titles, as its name suggested, was a place to obtain titles. The reason why there were titles and ordinary cultivators was because of this tower. After one's cultivation broke through to the primordial chaos realm, basically everyone would get a chance. That was to enter the Tower of Titles to accept a challenge. If the challenge was successful, one would get the corresponding title. Even if one failed the challenge, there was no loss. Of course, one could also choose not to go. If one chose not to go, they would lose the chance forever. Only after one's cultivation broke through to the next major realm would one get another chance. Of course, under normal circumstances, no one would reject it. After all, the title obtained by accepting the challenge of the Tower of Titles wasn't just a title or a title. It also represented the recognition of the Tower of Titles. Speaking of this, the origin of the title tower had to be told. There were two types of treasures in the world. One was born and bred, and the most famous was the innate spiritual treasure. The other was refined after birth. As long as the treasure was not born, it would be considered as an acquired treasure. As for the Tower of Title, it was obvious that it belonged to the former category. It was born naturally, and it was a precious treasure of the Great Way. It was similar to the Ring of the Great Path that Fong Qingshan had seen before. It was closely related to the will of heaven and earth. As long as one succeeded in the challenge in the title tower and obtained the corresponding title, it would be equivalent to obtaining the recognition of the will of the Great Way. With the recognition of the will of the Great Way, one would naturally have the support of the heavens and the earth. Although it was not as good as the karmic rank and the Tao fruit, the effect was still quite obvious. As for the benefits, Jiang Overlord had already mentioned them earlier. After obtaining a title, luck would be added to one's body, and it would be easier for one to comprehend the great Daos of the world. Of course, not all great Daos were easy. It was only for the great Daos corresponding to the title. For example, the lifeless demon palace's demon venerable extermination. His great Tao was the Tao of extermination. With the title of the extermination demon venerable, one would be able to comprehend the great way of annihilation as if the heavens were helping him. In addition, it could also reduce the number of tribulations. On a smaller scale, the bottlenecks in one's daily cultivation would be weakened, and it would be easier for one to break through. On a larger scale, one's immortal tribulation and divine emperor tribulation would also be weakened. Even so, not everyone would go to the title tower. At least, this was the case for primordial chaos experts. The reason was simple. Although one would not be harmed if they failed, there are not many title towers. After all, even a sect like the Tao sect did not have such a precious treasure. Therefore, it was naturally impossible for the title tower to be so popular. It would only appear in a few specific places. Moreover, the infinite void was too big. It was difficult for some remote places to reach the Tower of Title, especially for the people at the Origin Realm. They had just met the requirements to walk in a void, so it was still too dangerous for them to do so. Therefore, under normal circumstances, only those who were summoned by the Title Tower and those who were qualified would go. Otherwise, most people would not go to the Title Tower. After all, if one was lucky, one would at most return empty-handed and waste some time. If one was unlucky, one might die halfway. In fact, Fang Qingshan and Yang may have sensed it long ago. However, they knew too little about the infinite void, so they had not thought about it. They had thought it was some other opportunity. However, it did not mean that Jiang Overlord and Jiang Mingyue did not know. Coincidentally, they would pass by a title tower on their way back. Although they would not be able to catch up, they would just have to take a detour. Therefore, Jiang Overlord had brought them here. Based on Yang Mei and Fang Qingshan's performance and talent, it was almost certain that they would enter the inner sect of the Tao sect even if they did not have a title. However, since there were benefits, who would be willing to give it up? Moreover, a title was also a form of respect. There is a huge difference between having a title and not having a title. This is the title tower? Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei could not help but exclaim when they walked out of the void spaceship and saw the scene not far away. Far away in the void, there was a small island. Yes, the title tower was not in a chaotic world. Instead, it was situated in the infinite void, similar to the supply station of the void spaceship. On the small island, they could see a tall tower. The tower was completely black. It was so dark that it seemed to be a void that could absorb and contain everything. If one did not look closely, it seemed to be one with the infinite void. Magnificent, mysterious, ancient, vast, towering into the clouds and boundless. That's right, this is the title tower. Jiang Overlord nodded. Although he had seen this tower before and had even won a title in it, he was still shocked when he saw it again. As mentioned before, the title tower was very precious due to its grade. Therefore, it was rare. After all, the title tower's grade had surpassed a grade 3 supreme treasure. It was a grade 4 treasure, which was equivalent to an emperor god. Moreover, the title tower was not just an ordinary grade 4 treasure. It was at least a grade 4 treasure in the advanced stage. The reason why he made such a judgment was that the grade 4 treasures of the Tao sect could not be compared to it. However, the grade 4 treasures of the Tao sect were at the intermediate stage of grade 4. All right, you guys can go. With a sigh, Jiang Overlord let Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei fly over by themselves. Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei nodded. The two of them moved their feet and performed so close, yet world apart space. In an instant, they appeared on the small island. Chapter 1346. Buzz. As soon as Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei landed on the island, the title tower suddenly shone brightly. Then, two pagoda-like talismans flew out and fell toward Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei at lightning speed. Fang Qingshan and the other man were instantly shocked when they saw this, and they thought that something unexpected had occurred. They didn't even give it a thought before hurriedly withdrawing their divine abilities and supreme treasures with the intention of defending themselves, yet they noticed that it was completely useless. The talisman ignored their defenses and fell directly between their eyebrows. Then it flashed and was engraved on their eyebrows, as if it had been born. Fortunately, it was just a false alarm, and they were not hurt. Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, through the information transmitted from the talisman, Fang Qingshan understood the function of the talisman, and why the tidal tower was built in the middle of nowhere in the boundless void, and why the people who came to take the title would not be in danger. For one thing, if it landed in a chaotic world, it would easily cause a dispute, a conflict of interests. Although they could not take the tidal tower by force, they could make use of the land around the tidal tower. But if it landed in the void, they would not have to worry about it. Moreover, this was actually a test. How could the people who had obtained the title be timid? The most important thing was that anyone who came to the tidal tower for the first time would receive such a talisman. The function of the talisman was simple. It would guarantee the safety of the people who had obtained the title or not until they reached the next chaotic world. If someone attacked the person with the talisman, the tidal tower would counterattack. Once there was a group of thieves in the void who did not believe in this. They were blinded by greed, but in the end, the tidal tower came and suppressed them. A force even more powerful than the lifeless demon palace was destroyed. After a moment of shock, they came to themselves. On the island, besides the tidal tower, the first thing that Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei felt was the spiritual qi here. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth was so abundant that it was like a holy land for cultivation. Not only was it abundant, but it was also so pure that it was comparable to the immortal magic power. Here, even if one didn't use their cultivation technique, the spiritual energy would still flow into their body involuntarily. If they could cultivate here for a long time, God Emperors and God Emperors wouldn't be of much help. After all, at their realm, spiritual energy wouldn't be that useful. However, Origin Immortal and Immortal Realm could save him a lot of time. However, at this moment, Fang Qingshan's cultivation had reached the limit of this stage. No matter how much spiritual energy he absorbed, it would be completely useless. He would release as much as he absorbed. On the other hand, Yang Mei circulated his cultivation technique and fiercely swallowed it for a while, gaining some slight improvements. Unfortunately, one couldn't stay in this place for long. After a certain amount of time, one would be expelled. They could only enter if they obtained another opportunity. This was also the reason why Jiang Mingyue and Jiang Overlord did not follow them to the small island. Apart from the spiritual qi, there were also 4 huge stone steels standing beside the Tower of Tidal. The color of the steel was exactly the same as the color of the Tower of Tidal, dark black, and it seemed to have merged with the void, devouring all light. These 4 steels were known as the tidal steels. They corresponded to the stages of Origin Immortal, Immortal, God Emperor, and God Emperor. Compared to the Tower of Tidal, the tidal steels were different in color. The titles engraved on them were colorful. The reason why they were different was that, just like how ordinary cultivators were different from tidal cultivators, there was a difference in strength between tidal cultivators. The titles on the tidal steels were naturally the same, and they formed a pyramid-like shape. At the bottom, there were the most titles, which were red, and the color was naturally the lightest. Above them was orange, which was darker and brighter. There were fewer people, too. Above them were yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple. The number of people decreased, but the brightness was getting brighter, especially the purple at the top. Although there were fewer people, it was as bright as the sun in the sky. It was so bright that people couldn't open their eyes. Not to mention a purple title. Even a blue title was a top-level existence that was as evil as the heaven's pride. As long as they didn't die along the way, they would have no problem breaking through to a higher realm. At least, The purple and blue titles on the origin stele that Fang Qingshan saw were on the immortal stele, the God Emperor stele, and even the God Emperor stele. However, some of them still retained their blue and purple titles, while some had faded away. Of course, there were also titles that had lost their luster. Those were the titles of fallen cultivators. The infinite heavens, the infinite void, just how vast was it? Moreover, from the ancient times until now, countless great eras had passed, so one could well imagine how many people there were. The Tower of Title didn't exist as soon as it was formed, and not everyone would come to challenge it. Moreover, not everyone could succeed in challenging the Tower of Title and obtain a title. However, over the years, there were countless names engraved on the title stele. Fortunately, although the title stele couldn't be compared to the Tower of Title, it was still a treasure. At least, it wasn't weaker than a second-grade treasure. It was like a mustard seed, and it could manifest all the titles one by one. Fang Qingshan looked at it and found some familiar names. For example, the Poison Marquis, Demon Extermination, Jiang Overlord, Sword Emperor of Storm, etc. Among them, the strongest was naturally the Sword Emperor of Storm. However, even the Sword Emperor of Storm didn't have a purple title, but a blue title. However, this was already very impressive. After all, the purple titles on the Sword Emperor stele were less than 10 times as compared to the previous 3 steles. As a rogue cultivator, the Sword Emperor of Storm was already very lucky to be able to make it this far. Moreover, the title didn't represent one's true combat power, but potential. The Storm Sword token, which was able to make the top 100 disciples of the Supreme faction scramble for it, was indeed worthy of its reputation. Next was Jiang Overlord. As a direct disciple of the Tao sect, he was able to escape unscathed from a God Emperor many times. Therefore, Jiang Overlord's title had also reached blue. As for the Demon Extermination, it was still all right. His title was yellow, neither too high nor too low. As for the Poison Marquis, he was completely at the bottom. If it wasn't for Fang Qingshan's special search, it would be like searching for a needle in a haystack. I wonder what color title we will be able to obtain. Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei looked at the title steles one after another, and their hearts were filled with emotions. There was always someone better than you. It was indeed true. Since ancient times, there had been far too many geniuses and prodigies. There were even quite a number of purple titles. Especially among the immemorial and immortal steles, there were thousands of them, not to mention the blue titles. Chapter 1347. I think it won't be lower than a yellow title. Hearing Fang Qingshan's words, Fang Qingshan blurted out. He was quite confident that he would be able to pass the title tower's examination, and he believed that, with his talent, he would be able to get to the top. He didn't dare to dream about getting the purple and blue titles, but he also wouldn't be able to get the red and orange titles, which were at the bottom. Naturally, Fang Qingshan had no objections to this. As one of the top geniuses of Chaos World, even if the Chaos World was not strong, Yang Mei was definitely not weak. This could be seen from the fact that he had just passed the high-level Immortal Tribulation, especially since Yang Mei not only had a top-notch level 2 treasure, but also a broken level 3 treasure. As for himself, Fang Qingshan was confident that with his talent and ability, even if he didn't rely on the eternal heavenly vessel, he should still be able to reach the same level as Yang Mei. If he counted the eternal heavenly vessel, he would be able to reach at least 2 more stages and reach the cyan level, which wouldn't be inferior to Overlord Jiang. As for the higher blue and purple titles, he did not say that he would definitely be able to get them. It was not that he was belittling himself, but that he had not passed the test himself, so he was still uncertain. Not only were they speculating about what titles they could get, on the Void ship, Jiang Overlord and Jiang Mingyue were also discussing. Big brother, what color title do you think junior brother Yang Mei and junior brother Fang will get? Jiang Mingyue asked curiously. Jiang Mingyue had also passed the Tower of Title. Although she was not as good as Jiang Overlord, she had also reached the green title. The Tower of Title was similar to the Great Path Arena selection in Hongjun during the Desolation. It was a test of one's overall quality. It had high requirements for one's combat power and foundation. Although Jiang Mingyue came from the Daoil sect and had the danger sense physique, she had only managed to get the green title after risking her life. This showed that the threshold for the Tower of Title was not low, especially for the higher level titles. As for Yang Mei, if he can pass the test, he should be able to get the yellow title. It's a pity that he has just broken through to the immortal realm, so I'm not sure if he can pass the test. Jiang Overlord thought for a while and said in a low voice. As for Fang Qingshan, it should be at least yellow, and the highest should be cyan. Although the title tower's calculation was not based on combat power was still a part of it. Since Yang Mei had just broken through to the immortal realm, Jiang Overlord did not think highly of him. It wasn't that he looked down on Yang Mei, but he didn't know much about Yang Mei. As for Fang Qingshan, he wasn't too worried. After all, Fang Qingshan could defeat immortal realm experts as a primordial origin realm expert. Moreover, there were dozens of them, including a late-stage immortal realm expert. Generally speaking, the owner of the Timeless Ark would definitely pass the Tower of Titles when he was at the primordial chaos grade. He wouldn't be at the bottom, either. He would at least have a yellow title. As for higher, it was hard to say. Therefore, his speculation was similar to Fang Qingshan's self-evaluation. Forget it, let's go through the tower first. It was pointless to say or think about it. Once they tried, they would know. Now that they had seen it, they calmed themselves down and flew into the Tower of Titles. Although the Tower of Titles was small, there was no limit to the number of people who could challenge it. In other words, no matter how many people there were, strong or weak, he would not reject anyone. In fact, this was normal. After all, the Tower of Titles was a 4-level treasure. Even God Emperors could be tested. If it didn't have this function, wouldn't it be unworthy of its name? As Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei approached the Tower of Titles, they were sucked in by a devouring force. The next moment, the two of them were separated by the Tower of Titles. They appeared in a strange place. Of course, Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei had different levels of cultivation, so the tests they had to go through were naturally different. Fang Qingshan needed to obtain the Primordial Chaos grade title, while Yang Mei needed to obtain the Immortal Realm title. It was a dark space, so dark that one couldn't even see their own fingers. However, Fang Qingshan didn't panic. He just stood there patiently, waiting quietly. Sure enough, in less than a breath of time, a ray of light appeared in the distance. After that, the sound of footsteps resounded, and it was especially clear in the darkness. Every single step was rhythmic, and it seemed as if it had been precisely calculated. Every step was like the drum of 10,000 beasts breaking the formation, or the bell of chaos. Fang Qingshan's heart and blood vessels were affected involuntarily. Fang Qingshan raised his eyebrows. He operated the all-heaven Tao verification formula to isolate himself from this kind of influence. In the next moment, an unfamiliar figure walked out. This person was tall and thin, with a graceful bearing. He was elegant and dignified. He wore a green robe and a square scarf of the same color. He looked like a scholar. He looked like a useless scholar, but his aura told others that he was not someone to be trifled with. As he walked over, it seemed as if he was stepping on blue waves. Behind him, there was a vague image of a vast ocean. The billowing waves rolled up the snow, accumulating power. Yes, this person had been accumulating power from the moment he appeared. When he reached Fang Qingshan, he had already reached the peak. At that moment, Fang Qingshan didn't seem to be facing a person, but a vast ocean, a wave. The ocean was boundless, and the tide was rolling. The title this person had obtained should be related to the ocean or the tide. He was very strong. This person's cultivation fluctuation was the same as Fang Qingshan, Yang Mei, and Uncle Wang. They had all reached the 12th-stage peak primordial chaos. However, in terms of combat power, Uncle Wang was probably not his match at all. This was because this was a title primordial chaos. However, this was nothing to Fang Qingshan. After receiving the eternal blessing, his cultivation had reached the peak primordial chaos. His various divine powers, physical body, dermic powers, principal spirit, and nomological powers have been refined. Even if he challenged an immortal realm expert, he wouldn't dare to say that he could win, but he could still retreat unscathed. Even in the past, when his cultivation had not broken through, he had relied on the timeless Arkansas. Yes, although this person was a tidal primordial chaos, he was just an ordinary tidal primordial chaos cultivator who was at the bottom of the tidal steel. Everyone who challenged the tidal pagoda would be matched with a tidal primordial chaos cultivator according to their cultivation. For example, if one's cultivation was at the early stage primordial chaos, the tidal pagoda would first match an early stage primordial chaos cultivator. If one's cultivation was at the mid-stage primordial chaos, the corresponding mid-stage primordial chaos cultivator would be matched. So on and so forth. Of course, in the beginning, it would definitely be from weak to strong. Therefore, the first match would be for the weakest tidal pagoda. These people had succeeded in challenging the tidal pagoda and obtained a title. The imprints they had left in the tidal pagoda had manifested. Although it was just an imprint, it was no different from a real person. Of course, even if they were the same color, there would definitely be strong and weak ones. There might even be someone who could restrain you. This would depend on your luck. After all, luck was also a part of the tidal pagoda's test. Chapter 1348. Luck. This was very important in cultivation. It could be seen from the primordial world. Why did so many people value luck so much, and even search for treasures to suppress it? Although luck could not completely determine one's achievements, if one's luck was at its peak, one would be like a fish in water. If one's luck was declining, one would be at a disadvantage. It was the same for challenging the tower. If one met a top-notch opponent or someone that specialized in restraining one could only blame it on one's bad luck. If they could successfully pass the first round, the next round would be the orange tidal cultivator, then the yellow tidal cultivator, and so on and so forth. When one failed, one would be given a title that was one level lower. The highest title was purple. Of course, this was how the tidal tower did things after the number of brands increased. As for how the tidal tower worked in the beginning, Fang Qingshan did not know and did not care. On the other hand, Fang Qingshan was more interested in the rewards of different color titles. The difference between the lowest and the highest title was huge. To be more specific, a red title could increase one's luck by 1%, while a purple title could increase one's luck by 100%. Let's not talk about this for now. After the scholar stood in front of Fang Qingshan, he unleashed all his qi. His qi had already reached its peak. Without any greetings or waiting, he attacked. If he waited any longer, his qi would be exhausted. Actually, Fang Qingshan could have attacked first. It would have been easier to deal with him if he attacked before his opponent's qi had reached its peak. Once his opponent's qi had reached its peak, his attack would be at its peak. It would be terrifying and difficult to deal with. Normally, one would only be able to unleash 70% of one's fighting ability. If one went all out, one could unleash 100% of one's fighting ability. If one was to accumulate qi, one could unleash 120% of one's fighting ability. Therefore, under normal circumstances, one would not allow his opponent to finish accumulating qi. If this happened, one would interrupt the fight. If one interrupted the fight midway, not only would one not have to face an even fiercer attack, but if one's qi was interrupted, one would at least be in pain. However, Fang Qingshan did not do this. He allowed his opponent to accumulate qi. After all, this was only the first one. He was very confident. This was not arrogance or conceit, but confidence. Kill! With a shout, the scholar unsheathed the sword at his waist and slashed. An extremely powerful sword qi shot out of the scabbard like a bolt of lightning. After that, 1 became 2, 2 became 4, 4 became 8, 8 became 16, 16 became 32. In an instant, the sword qi swept out and transformed into boundless waves. The sword qi clanged and the waves struck the sky, emitting deafening rumbling sounds. In an instant, it was as if a large world had been formed in the ocean. It was dark and gloomy, and there was no end to it. It seemed to be boundless. This was an ultimate sword, an incomparable sword that could cleave apart anything. All of the power and faith in this sword was condensed within it. Moreover, this sword not only contained the surging power of the sea, but also contained the surging undercurrents of waves. Moreover, compared to the power on the surface, the endless hidden energy was even more difficult to deal with. An ordinary peak primordial chaos cultivator without a priceless treasure would not be a match for this sword move at all. However, it wasn't enough to deal with Fang Qingshan. Even in the past, he would only need to put in a little more effort, let alone now. However, Fang Qingshan's footsteps only slid slightly, and he only moved an inch or so, easily dodging that terrifying sure-kill sword by a hair's breadth. At the same time, without waiting for the other party to attack a second time, Fang Qingshan flicked his finger. A glimmer of light flashed, and an awl flew out at lightning speed. Before the scholar could react, it pierced through the sea of sword chi and continued shooting toward the scholar without losing momentum, hitting the spot between his eyebrows. Reincarnation Awl. It was the former intrinsic divine power, the five-element Awl. It had a powerful single-target attack and was best at breaking defenses. After his intrinsic law had been converted to the reincarnation Great Tao, the five-element Awl had also become the reincarnation Awl. Its effect had not changed, but its power had multiplied, especially after his cultivation had improved and he had been tempered by the eternal divine power. It was no longer the same as before. Moreover, compared to the previous five-element Awl, the current reincarnation Awl had an additional trace of reincarnation esoteric and a trace of primordial spirit attack. Although its main attack power was still to break defenses, it could make people fall into reincarnation and fall into a trance. This would be fatal. Sure enough, after the attack, the scholar's eyes glazed over and he could not react at all. In an instant, he was sent flying as if he had been hit by a primordial beast, and a hole appeared between his eyebrows. A one-hit kill. In this regard, Fang Qingshan was neither happy nor sad. He quietly waited for the next opponent to appear. Not long after, the opponent that he had killed turned into mottled spots of light like an illusion and dissipated into thin air. Then, the same thing happened again. A light lit up in the darkness, and soon after, the sound of footsteps could be heard. Not long after, a man walked out. Unlike the previous scholar, this person was somewhat similar to Jiang Overlord. He was full of domineering aura, had a square face, a beard, and bulging muscles. When he took a step forward, one could faintly hear the sound of a powerful army with a murderous aura. This person was obviously someone who was used to killing. In the mortal world, he would at least be a general with great power. Although this person's cultivation level was still at the peak of primordial chaos, compared to the previous scholar, he was obviously a level higher. At the very least, he had an orange title. Kill. Just like before, this burly man directly attacked when he arrived in front of Fang Qingshan. This should be a cultivator who tempered his body. He did not take out his numinous treasure. The moment he attacked, it was a punch. When the fist landed, it seemed as if a dragon roared in the nine heavens. The mountains, rivers, and people were all in this punch. The fist was full of majesty and domineering, making it impossible for people to dodge. It was as if it was not a fist, but the power of a monarch. Clenching a fist was holding power. A powerful punch was power. This was a punch that could overturn the world. Good timing. Fang Qingshan still did not take the initiative to attack. Instead, he allowed the punch to land. Then, without dodging, he also punched back. His fist emitted an infinite light, flowing with the profundity of the transmigration law. It belonged to the integration of his essence, chi, and spirit, turning into such a power, causing his fist to be indestructible. His chi and blood were like a dragon, and his spirit and willpower were even more indestructible. Buzz. The two fists collided, bursting out with a loud sound. Fang Qingshan's fist did not move at all and was not damaged at all. It was full of immortality and the profundity of eternity. The fist's momentum was unstoppable. Chapter 1349. Although Fang Qingshan's background couldn't be compared to Yang Mei's, he was just a mortal. He wasn't raised by nature, nor did he have a top-notch bloodline or physique. However, after obtaining the Timeless Ark, Fang Qingshan abandoned his cultivation and recultivated to create the heavenly Tao verification technique that was most suitable for him. This cultivation technique was a comprehensive cultivation technique that included the general principles: qi refinement, body refinement, spirit refinement, Tao defense techniques, divine abilities, secret techniques, 100 arts of cultivation, formation techniques, alchemy techniques, artifact techniques. It was all-inclusive. In order to cultivate this cultivation method, one had to constantly use all kinds of heavenly treasures to strengthen themselves. What is lost, and what is lost is gained. Not only could he make up for his foundation, but he could also obtain all kinds of divine abilities. To this day, in terms of physique, bloodline, and other natural factors, Fang Qingshan did not dare to boast that he was comparable to a natural-born saint, but he was not the least bit weaker than others. At least when compared to people like Yang Mei, he was not at a disadvantage at all. In terms of qi refinement, he had reached the peak of primordial chaos. In terms of body tempering, he was not inferior at all. In terms of qi refinement, he had innate divine abilities, the 5 elements bracelets, the 5 elements all, and now the reincarnation ring and reincarnation all. In terms of body refining, he also had various innate battle techniques. Therefore, when he punched out, it was ferocious and unstoppable. As for the other party, his fist exploded almost instantaneously with a loud bang. He couldn't block Fang Qingshan's fist at all. Not only did this single punch shatter the other party's battle technique, it even shattered the other party's fist. It didn't even manage to block the other party's attack. The fist continued to descend upon the other party, and it was as fast as lightning, its momentum not slowing down at all. Bang! With a muffled sound, the burly man's body shook violently, and he let out a painful groan. His body flew out like a meteor, and more than half of his body was directly smashed into pieces. Fortunately, it didn't explode. Almost in an instant, he lost the ability to fight. As expected, times have changed. Fang Qingshan could not help but sigh after easily defeating 2 titled primordial chaos experts. He had been able to deal with such an opponent in the past, but it was definitely impossible for him to defeat his opponent so easily in just 1 or 2 moves. Even if they didn't use all their trump cards, they would definitely be busy for a long time. But at the same time, as Fang Qingshan's cultivation increased, so did his horizons. Although his cultivation level was still at primordial chaos, he had already set his sights on the immortal realm. Therefore, even though he felt that he had easily defeated his opponent, he did not feel arrogant or complacent. In fact, he did not even feel overly happy. Just like Fang Han, as his cultivation improved, he had his eyes on Hua Tiandu of the Emergent Sect, Yin Shui of the Greater One Sect, and the others. Would he still care about Jia Lan, Ling Xiao, and the others of the Emergent Sect? Since the second opponent had lost his combat power, there was no need for Fang Qingshan to add another punch. Just like the first opponent, he quickly dissipated. At the same time, the third opponent soon appeared. As expected, the third opponent's cultivation level was 3 times higher than the second opponent's. He was a peak primordial chaos cultivator with a yellow title. Fang Qingshan secretly estimated that he was no worse than Yang Mei, who had just successfully transcended the tribulation transcendence. However, although Yang Mei was not bad, after Fang Qingshan had advanced to the peak primordial chaos and the Timeless Ark had advanced to the supremacy stage, he had completely surpassed him, even though he still had the chaos bead, a broken level 3 supreme treasure. Therefore, this time, Fang Qingshan also easily defeated him. He just had to spend a little more effort. The fourth opponent was a peak primordial chaos cultivator with a green title. Naturally, he was even more powerful. Fortunately, Fang Qingshan's luck was not bad. Although it was a green title, it was considered average among all the green titles. Furthermore, it was not an existence that could restrain Fang Qingshan. Even so, this time, Fang Qingshan spent a lot of effort. He used all kinds of divine powers and combat skills one after another. He even took out the reincarnation mirror to defeat his opponent. Although the battle was a little difficult, the harvest was also considerable. It was lonely at the top, and it was rare to find an opponent. Fighting was the best teacher. After fighting with this person, Fang Qingshan gained a better understanding of the top-notch geniuses of Boundless Void. Moreover, at the same time, he adapted to his newly attained cultivation faster and had better control over his body. The fifth opponent was a green-title Primordial Chaos Cultivator. At this point, they already possessed the fighting power to fight against immortals. They might not be able to win, but they could at least exchange a few blows and retreat unscathed. This time, Fang Qingshan defeated his opponent more easily than before. This was because he had used the timeless Arkansas. It was not that he did not want to fight to his heart's content and accumulate experience. It was just that the situation did not allow it. This was because Fang Qingshan had discovered that in the title Pagoda, he had to fight continuously. Opponents appeared one after another and did not give him any chance to breathe. Moreover, after his spiritual power was depleted, there was no way to replenish it. Moreover, he had already reached the green title. Naturally, Fang Qingshan did not dare to be careless. Even a lion would use all its strength to fight a rabbit. Therefore, he immediately took out the timeless Arkansas. As expected, even though the green title Primordial Chaos Cultivator had the fighting power to fight against immortals, it was not enough against the timeless Ark and was easily suppressed. Then, Fang Qingshan quietly waited for the sixth opponent to arrive. He felt that with the timeless Ark in his hands, he would definitely be able to get a blue title. However, what confused him was that, according to the previous pattern, after the previous opponent was defeated, the next opponent would appear immediately. There was no time for him to breathe. This time, however, something was strange. Fang Qingshan waited for a while, but there was still no movement. What is going on? Fang Qingshan furrowed his brows, feeling a little puzzled. Could it be that the title Pagoda is not as I imagined? It doesn't give people any time to breathe? Is it that I only have time to rest after reaching the end? Or is there some other reason? Since he couldn't figure it out, Fang Qingshan didn't think too much about it. If the enemy doesn't move, he won't move. With the mentality of not changing one's behavior, Fang Qingshan was not anxious and continued to wait quietly. Time passed by little. Very quickly, Fang Qingshan realized that something was wrong. Because first, he felt a sense of foreboding. He was irritated and couldn't calm himself down. Observing himself, he found that the sky was covered in black clouds and the air was thick as clouds. Then, the heavens chessboard's fate began to move and was not stable at all. When fate was unstable, something big was bound to happen. Especially when even the heavens chessboard, a treasure that specialized in suppressing fate, couldn't suppress it. Finally, Fang Qingshan used the Book of Luo River diagram inside the timeless Ark to perform a simulation. What he got was a very poor divination. When something was out of the ordinary, there must be something wrong. Could it be that it didn't start, but that it started a long time ago? Sensing that something wasn't right, Fang Qingshan was on high alert. Sensing something wasn't right, he naturally had to investigate. Releasing his primordial spirit, Fang Qingshan didn't let go of any details. Chapter 1350. However, something strange happened to Fang Qingshan. Even with his powerful spiritual force, he did not discover anything amiss. Everything seemed normal. It was the same as before. Those who did not know would think that they were overthinking and hallucinating. However, Fang Qingshan did not let down his guard at all. On the contrary, he became even more vigilant. It was precisely because everything was normal that it made everything seem abnormal. If it was normal, how could there be a sudden inspiration, a fluctuation of providence, and a great ominous divination? After all, if it was just a sudden impulse, a surge of luck, or a divination, it could be said that there was a mistake. However, if 3 warnings were given at the same time, it was not a mistake or an accident, but something that actually happened. If he did not take it seriously, he would be stupid and courting death. Oomph. Fong Qing Shan snorted coldly. A huge bell appeared above his head. There were the sun, moon, stars, mountains, rivers, and countless texts engraved on it. He knocked it heavily. Dang! A clear bell sound came from above the 9 heavens, carrying with it an immeasurable majesty. It divided yin and yang, refined the 5 elements, pushed the 8 trigrams, suppressed space-time, and froze the aura. Circles of sound waves crashed in all directions like a tide. The Bell of Chaos was a 2nd-grade cardinal treasure. Although it had just advanced and was only a low-grade 2nd-grade cardinal treasure, it was not weaker than many middle-grade or even superior-grade cardinal treasures. In terms of foundation, it was even above other treasures. It also had the power to suppress the primordial world, the power to distort space-time, the power to evolve the mysteries of Hongjun Tiandao, and the ability to refine the earth, water, fire, and wind. Once it was rung, the bell's sound was mighty. The universe was brilliant, the world lost its color, and the universe shook. It was the best method to break through all kinds of secret barriers, illusions, essence spirit attacks, and so on. As expected, it did not disappoint the mission. This time, the unchanging situation in the surroundings finally revealed a flaw under the interference of the Bell of Chaos. Boom! There was a loud sound, but the eternally still darkness finally showed traces of changes, and a little ripple appeared. Although it was quickly smoothed out, this little ripple was enough for Fong Qing Shan to see the truth. In the darkness, there was a man who seemed both real and illusory, sitting upright. Compared to the Azura clan that Mosquito Dowrin had created, he had a vertical pupil between his brows, which was very different from the 3 eyes of Wenzhong and Erling Shun. His power could not be mentioned in the same breath. Even Fong Qing Shan felt like he would fall into an eternal slumber if he looked at it. Her long hair draped over her shoulders and was dyed with a layer of scarlet bloodlight. His entire body was filled with an extremely evil aura, completely different from those evil spirits that Fong Qing Shan had seen before. However, its evilness was as pure as the primordial heavenly devil in the hands of the prime devil, as if it was the supreme and origin of all evil. From head to toe, he gave off an air of superiority, as if he was looking down on ants. However, when Fong Qing Shan wanted to drive his primordial spirit to lock onto that figure, he felt like he was grabbing sand with his hands. The harder he tried, the more he couldn't sense it clearly. What a great illusion! It's amazing. Although the illusion was broken, Fong Qing Shan still couldn't help but gasp. Because Fong Qing Shan didn't just see the man in the dark. When he turned around to look at himself, he also saw a dark gray halo above his head. It was full of evil, silent, and devouring negative power Upanishads. At the same time, his essence, chi, and spirit were silently being weakened and devoured, like the silent spring rain that had snuck into the night with the wind. Even Fong Qing Shan himself did not notice it at all before this. Even the natal spiritual treasure, reincarnation mirror, timeless arc, and the natal magical powers in his body didn't react at all. They automatically protected his body, as if they weren't hurt at all. If he didn't break this illusion and let the halo cover him, he would probably die without knowing how he died. Break! Fong Qing Shan made a gesture with his hands and said softly. Above the gate of heaven, 2 rays of light, one black and one white, shot out and intertwined with each other. As they rotated slowly, they evolved into a big bell, somewhat similar to the Bell of Chaos, but very different. It rang without any wind, and layers of halos spread out. In an instant, the halo of death collapsed. To a certain extent, he was immune to all evil, and no negative effects could affect him. Bell of Samsara. It was a defensive magical power transformed from the 5 elements and 5 Emperor's canopy. Generally, the illusion only aroused the demons, obsessions, and desires in one's heart. However, this illusion actually made people fall into it silently, and they didn't feel anything at all. Those who didn't know would think that nothing had happened. It was simply terrifying. Looking around again, Fang Qingshan saw the essence of the illusion because of the Bell of Chaos. But in the next moment, it returned to calmness, as if everything just now was just a dreamlike bubble. He couldn't tell whether what he saw was real or what he just saw was real. Everything was like flowers in a mirror and the moon reflected in the water, a mirage. However, since Fang Qingshan had already discovered the clues, he naturally wouldn't be deceived anymore. Break, break, break! Fang Qingshan said 3 times in a row, and the bell of chaos in his hand kept ringing. Clang, clang, clang! A series of hurried bell sounds rang out. The sun, moon, stars, mountains, rivers, and all living beings engraved in the bell of chaos reflected the myriad of phenomena, and the clear sound of the bell spread in all directions. In that instant, the world was filled with a space-time suppression power. It was brilliant like the might of the heavens, and it was everywhere. In the next moment, the illusion that had just been restored was finally broken. Although this illusionary technique was unusual and more difficult to guard against than other illusions, it was still different from offensive and defensive techniques. As long as one was prepared, it would be much easier to break through it. I didn't expect you to be able to discover my existence. The evil spirit that schemed against Fang Qingshan clearly didn't expect Fang Qingshan to be able to discover his existence, and was very surprised. It should be known that once one was unprepared and fell into this illusion of their race, it wouldn't be a problem for them to challenge those of a higher level. He had relied on this technique to plot against many undying realm experts. Even if there were people who could wake up halfway, they were all heavily injured. Fang Qingshan was the only one who was able to come back to his senses in such a short period of time and break through the illusion. This was truly out of his expectations. Although he was surprised, he didn't panic. After all, his abilities weren't limited to illusions. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been ranked blue. He spoke slowly and lazily. His voice was a little cryptic, hoarse, and deep, but when it rang out, it was like the roar of an angry wind. It carried a terrifying might that suppressed the world. You're not bad, you're not bad. Just like the aura on his body, he spoke high and mighty. Chapter 1351. Not bad? Hee hee. Although the other party's tone was not very comfortable, Fang Qingshan only chuckled and did not comment. After all, he had accidentally fallen into the other party's trap. Now, it seemed that the other party was not to be trifled with. However, even so, Fang Qingshan was not worried at all. It was like trouble. Although he did not want to cause trouble, he was not afraid of it. It just depended on whether he was willing or not. After all, he was just a person of the same level, not like Jiang Overlord, who felt invincible. Previously, he had been able to fight against dozens of immortal realm experts, including several mid-stage and late-stage immortal realm experts. Now, he was just a peak primordial chaos existence. Even though he was a natural sacred being, Fang Qingshan was not weaker than others. However, this person's spiritual wisdom seemed to be no different from a real person, which attracted Fang Qingshan's attention. Although the previous person was no different from a real person, it was only in terms of combat. However, the person in front of him was like that in all aspects. If one did not know better, they would not think that this person was an imprint, but rather a face-to-face conversation with the real person. He did not know whether it was because all blue titles were like this, or because the person he had met was extraordinary. However, Fang Qingshan thought that it should be both. However, the latter should be the most important. It seems that I have met a very extraordinary opponent this time. Fang Qingshan thought to himself, but he asked the question out loud. Who are you? Why did you plot against me? Plot against you? Hee hee, I attacked you openly, but you did not notice me. How is this a plot? The person sneered. Moreover, can I only fight you head-on? And no, who am I? You don't know me? The bewitching and evil-looking man came to his senses and seemed very surprised. He hadn't expected that there would be someone who didn't know of him, let alone someone who was so famous. What a country bumpkin. Should I know? Fang Qingshan said faintly. Putting aside the fact that he had just arrived in the boundless void and did not know much about the living beings in the myriad worlds, even if he was born and raised here, with his current achievements, even a purple title would not be able to move him. Interesting, interesting. The man could tell that Fang Qingshan really didn't know him and didn't care at all, which made him even more interested. Although there were very few people who wouldn't be moved when they saw him and knew of him, it wasn't like there weren't any. After all, he wasn't the number one genius in the world. However, Fang Qingshan didn't know anything about him. He didn't even know what race he was born in. This piqued his curiosity. There were only two explanations for such a situation. One was that he was truly ignorant and ill-informed. However, such a situation was definitely impossible. In other words, it could only be someone who paid no attention to the outside world and only focused on cultivating the eternal Tao. The other explanation was that he came from a remote place that didn't even know much about the boundless void. This person's eyes flickered as he tried to guess what kind of person Fang Qingshan was. It would be fine if it was the former, but if it was the latter, what a pity. After a while, he sighed. So what if Fang Qingshan was the latter? Even though it seemed that he was no different from the real body, it was only an appearance. His existence was limited to the tidal tower, and it was impossible for him to send a message to the real body. Not to mention the original, he couldn't even send a message to the other immortal title in the Tower of Titles. I am Yin Xieho, born in the heavenly evil tribe. After a short pause, Yin Xieho revealed his background. Oh, it's Yin Xieho. Fang Qingshan was enlightened. How is it? You finally know who I am. Yin Xieho looked at Fang Qingshan and finally nodded. This was the correct way to open the Tower of Titles. Although you are the master of the timeless arc, you are still no match for me. You should kill yourself. Otherwise, it won't be good for you if I make a move. Unfortunately, he was mistaken about one thing. Fang Qingshan wasn't shocked by his name, but he thought of the purple title on the immortal tablet, Reverend Yin Xie. However, there were only a few that had a higher color than the previous one. Under normal circumstances, if the title of Primordial Chaos was any color, it would be great if it could stabilize after reaching the immortal realm. Most of them would drop by a level or even more. Only a few people could improve on their original foundation. Of course, the purple titles were an exception. However, some of them couldn't maintain their purple titles. Yin Xieho was an exception. When he was in the Primordial Chaos realm, he only had a blue title. After reaching the immortal realm, he became a purple title. However, Yin Xieho only obtained a blue title because he was unlucky. At the last stage, not only did he encounter an expert with a purple title, but one that specifically countered him. Even so, it was still amazing that he could catch up and win a purple title when he was in the immortal realm. Because of this, Yin Xieho caught Fang Qingshan's attention. As for the heavenly evil tribe, he didn't know anything about it. However, if it was Jiang Mingyue or Jiang Bawang, things would be different. To them, the heavenly evil tribe was like thunder piercing their ears, because the Dao sect at its peak couldn't be compared to the heavenly evil tribe. The heavenly evil tribe was ranked 21st on the Supreme Forces list, above the Dragon and Phoenix clans. There were more than 5 God Emperors in the sect, and the strongest God Emperor had reached the peak late God Emperor realm, almost breaking through to the peak God Emperor realm. They also had many 4 extreme treasures. They might even have treasures comparable to the tidal pagoda. These were just the forces on the surface. As for how many were hidden in the dark, no one knew. It was a pity that Fang Qingshan knew nothing about it. Yin Xieho was playing the lute to a cow. However, even though he didn't know about the heavenly evil tribe, Fang Qingshan couldn't help but lament that his luck seemed to have gotten worse based on his understanding of Yin Xieho. It seemed that his previous opponent had used up all his luck. After all, Yin Xieho was one of the few people who evolved from a blue title to a purple title. He wasn't a simple person. Even among all the blue titles, he was considered one of the best. He was even harder to deal with than some of the purple titles. Really? I would like to give it a try. Fang Qingshan was eager to give it a try. Sai, it seems like you won't give up until you see your coffin. Do you think you're invincible just because you're the master of the timeless arc? It's not just one or two eternal heavenly vessels that my heavenly evil clan has destroyed. It's not like I haven't destroyed the master of the timeless arc before. Inciejo shook his head as though he was sighing. There's a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. There's no door to hell, but you're here. Chapter 1352. Do you really think there's no danger in the Tidal Tower's test? You must know that nothing is absolute, and my heavenly evil clan is where the flaw lies. Even with the protection of the Tidal Tower, if you're killed by me, unless you find one of the top 10 sovereign forces or the owner of the eternal heavenly vessel to help you get rid of it, your life is basically over. Then, Inciejo shook his head in pity. Inciejo wasn't lying, and he wasn't trying to scare Fong Qingshan. The world was big, and there were all sorts of strange things. Although the Tidal Tower claimed that one wouldn't be harmed no matter whether he passed or not, there were always exceptions. But it was just a claim, and there were always exceptions. After all, there was no such thing as 100% in the world. It was just that it was rare, so it wasn't known to the public. Because ordinary people wouldn't be able to match up with Inciejo. But for the top forces, they all knew about it. Under normal circumstances, with the guards of the Tidal Tower, regardless of whether one passed or died in the Tidal Tower, as long as one left the tower, everything would be fine. But when one met someone like the Heavenly Evil Clan, the safety would be greatly affected. There was once a genius from a top force like Dao, sect who was matched with a genius from the Heavenly Evil Clan. He failed and left the Tidal Tower. Not only did he not recover, but the Heavenly Evil energy was also hard to get rid of. Even the God Emperor of the sect couldn't do it, and he was crippled. From then on, the Heavenly Evil Clan became a taboo in the Tidal Tower. The Heavenly Evil Clan was different from other clans. As the supreme forces that were about to enter the top 20, even those in the top 20 didn't want to provoke them. The reason why they didn't want to provoke them was because the Heavenly Evil energy left behind by the Heavenly Evil Clan would be hard to get rid of. In the past, they thought that it would only work when they fought, but they didn't expect it to work in the Tidal Tower as well. This made the Heavenly Evil Clan even more famous. There were tens of thousands of clans in Desolation, and there were also tens of thousands of clans in the world. Monster, demon, ghost, monster, evil, immortal, Taoist, Buddha. Monster, demon, and ghost were easy to deal with, but immortal, Buddha, and Taoist existed as a branch of the great Tao. For example, in the primordial world, people had heard of the demon race and the demon race, but they had never heard of the Buddhist race and the Tao race. But they were also considered Buddha and Taoist clans. It was just that the way they called it was different. Moreover, the true Buddhist clan and Tao clan did indeed exist on the same level as the demon clan and demon clan. At this point, he had to talk about his understanding of the race. In fact, this had to be explained from their classification. For example, demons could be divided into two types. The first type were born demons. In other words, in terms of bloodline, they were born as demons. The three-legged golden crow, true dragon, heavenly phoenix, Baifeng, and black tortoise were all natural demons. The other was to cultivate demons. They were originally not demons, but they had evolved and transformed into demons. They could cultivate demon race techniques, transplant bloodlines, and so on. Demon cultivation was easy. In some worlds, immortal cultivators would enter the immortal realm after ascending. Devil cultivators would enter the devil realm after ascending. So on and so forth. Demon cultivators would enter the demon realm. Step by step, they would transform into true demons. As for the bloodline transplant, it was even more crude and simple, but it was done in one step. However, it was slightly more dangerous. The evil Tao was the same. There were also innate evil spirits and acquired evil spirits. It was like the difference between innate and acquired. And among all the evil cultivators, there was a very special race. It was the heavenly evil race, because they were not only innate evil spirits, but also the origin of the evil race. It was different from oviparous, viviparous, and fission reproduction. The heavenly evil race was somewhat similar to the fairy race. However, the fairy race grew from trees, while the evil race jumped out from the altar. This altar was born when the universe was formed. It was the most primitive and evil place. The world was balanced. If there was yin, there would be yang. If there was black, there would be white. If there was good, there would be evil. If there was light, there would be darkness. There was the immortal spirit race, the sacred Buddha race, the Hongjun Tiandao race, the origin demon race, and the heavenly evil race. And that evil altar was the origin of the evil spirit race. At the same time, it was also the place where the evil source of heaven and earth returned to. Just like the blood sea, it digested the negative elements. However, the difference was that the blood sea purified all the negative elements, while the evil altar accumulated them and gave birth to the heavenly evil race. The great calamity was the prosperity of the heavenly evil race. This was because the more evil aura there was, the more heavenly evil race members the evil altar could give birth to, and the more geniuses it could give birth to. In normal times, their ability to give birth was inferior to races like the dragon and phoenix. However, no matter how many there were, the heavenly evil race members were all geniuses. To other races, geniuses were extremely rare, and geniuses were even rarer. However, to them, geniuses were the norm. There were many geniuses, but ordinary existences were rare. This was because they were born with a special physique like the evil body. They were born with the evil form, and they were born to avoid all kinds of tribulations. Naturally, they were like fish in water when cultivating, especially the Tao of evil. It was as easy as drinking water. Furthermore, they were born with the Tao of evil. They were extremely strange, and they cultivated all kinds of illusions, curses, and other unorthodox techniques to the extreme. Don't underestimate these seemingly unorthodox curses and illusions. Once they reached a certain level, their power could not be ignored, and it was impossible to guard against them. The best example was the 7 Arrows book and the 6 Soul Banner in the Untainted Land, which made people pale at the mention of it. In the former, Jiang Zia, an Earth Immortal, killed Zhao Gongming, Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. In the latter, if the long-eared Dingguang Immortal had not betrayed Tong Tian, the final result of the conferred god battle would have been unknown. This was only in the desolation. Compared to the evil techniques of the heavenly evil race, it was simply a small sorcerer. Why did many races that were stronger than them not want to provoke them? Firstly, it was unnecessary. Secondly, it was because of these strange and powerful evil techniques. For example, the illusion that attacked Fang Qingshan. It could make people fall into it unknowingly, and they wouldn't know what was going on until they died. It was precisely because of such strange and evil techniques that even the Tidal Tower couldn't completely avoid them. Therefore, when challenging the tower, unless one was very confident in himself, most people would directly admit defeat. Otherwise, they would have to be brought back to reality after being seriously injured. Moreover, it was not easy to get rid of. It was just like the Tao injury that Yang Mei suffered when he encountered the great tribulation of creation. This was also the reason why Yin Xiaohe was surprised that Fang Qingshan didn't know him and dared to fight him. Chapter 1353. With regard to Yin Xiaohe's words, Fang Qingshan's expression didn't change at all. Regardless of whether what he said was true or false, was he really going to give up just because of Yin Xiaohe's words? Furthermore, he was very confident in himself. At this point, he didn't dare to say that he was invincible among those at the same level as him, but there was no one above him. Kill. Without hesitation and without mercy, Fang Qingshan struck with the bell of chaos in his hand. In an instant, a force that suppressed Hongming engulfed the entire place. Then, he took out the reincarnation mirror and waved it at Yin Xiaohe. A black and white light pillar that alternated between life and death blasted down. Reincarnation, reincarnation, reincarnation. Heavenly sounds rang out like bells, ignoring all defenses and penetrating straight into one's mind. A 6 paths of reincarnation wheel formed above Yin Xiaohe's Yuan Shun, and the black and white light of reincarnation shot out, as if it was trying to drag him into reincarnation. Endless illusions were born and destroyed, and all sorts of demons and desires were aroused. 1 life, 10 lives, 100 lives, 1,000 lives, 10,000 lives, endless reincarnation. Although it was said that there were 3,000 great Taoists, all of them led to the same destination. But this was just a saying, or rather, after attaining eternity, it was possible for such a situation to occur. But this was definitely not the case before attaining eternity. It was just like saying that everyone was equal and there was no hierarchy. But was this really the case? Were Jiang Overlord and the others from the great sects really the same as those rogue cultivators who besieged Fang Qingshan? Or could Jiang Overlord be the same as Yin Xiaohou? This was obviously impossible. Time was supreme, and space was king. From this sentence alone, it could be seen that different laws were different. Why did Fang Qingshan want to convert the 5 elements law into the reincarnation law? Wasn't it because the reincarnation law was of a higher level than the 5 elements law? The higher level he was, the closer he was to the Tao of eternity. Although cultivating that Tao was more difficult, it made it easier to corroborate the Tao. Among people of the same level, his fighting prowess was higher. Fang Qingshan cultivated the Tao of reincarnation, which had evolved from the Tao of the 5 elements. He had gained enlightenment of the great Tao of reincarnation of a chaos world, including the great Tao of reincarnation of heaven and earth. Like Yang Mei, he had inherited the legacy of the reincarnation devil god, as well as the 6 paths of reincarnation of the desolation of the 6 paths of reincarnation, all of which had been perfected by the eternal blessing. As for the reincarnation mirror, it was originally not inferior to the top 2nd level supreme treasure. After it was broken, it was restored. Although it was not as good as the original, it had reached the peak of the 1st-class supreme treasure with Fang Qingshan's sacrificial refining. Fang Qingshan's strength had reached the limit of primordial chaos, and his various samsara divine powers were transformed from absorbing top-notch heaven and earth treasures, which were equivalent to a gift from the heavens. The combination of these was like adding wings to a tiger. Therefore, as soon as he made his move, the reincarnation light didn't even land on Marquis Inch's defense. The reincarnation projection affected his primordial spirit. This was clearly out of the Inchia Marquis's expectations, which left him shocked. After all, he initially thought that Fang Qingshan only dared to speak to him like that because of the timeless Arkansas. He never expected that Fang Qingshan's strength wasn't weak. But even so, that was all there was to it. That's because the Inchia Marquis didn't sense any familiar aura from Fang Qingshan. He wasn't like Fang Qingshan, who had just come to the boundless void and the all heavens. He wasn't clueless about everything, so much so that he didn't even know about the heavenly evil clan. As one of the most ancient and powerful forces in the all heavens, the Inchia Marquis was very familiar with the ancient forces, bloodlines, and physiques. However, he didn't sense any from Fang Qingshan, which meant that Fang Qingshan wasn't ordinary, but he didn't come from any of those places. The all heavens were huge, and they were ancient. But to those ancient forces, the world might be huge, but they had already investigated the basic situation. Aside from those who were on the same level as them, it was wishful thinking for others to surpass them. Although there were exceptions, the probability was so low that it was negligible. In the eyes of the Inchia Marquis, it was impossible for his luck to be so bad. Therefore, although Fang Qingshan wasn't bad, that was all. If he wasn't the owner of the Timeless Ark, the Inchia Marquis wouldn't even want to speak to him. At this moment, when Fang Qingshan made a move, the Inchia Marquis's brows twitched and an altar formed in his mind. This altar was none other than the extreme evil altar that nurtured the heavenly evil clan. It was made of white bones, sparkling like jade, and there were many mysterious patterns engraved on its surface. When they were intertwined, it looked extremely mysterious. Black runes flickered with an evil radiance that seemed like the source of all evils. Ancient and mysterious. The reincarnation imprint that was about to wreak havoc was instantly tainted by an obscure aura on the altar and assimilated. After solving the problem in his mind, he had no intention of dodging the incoming attack. He stretched out his arm and clenched his fist before throwing a punch out. The Heavenly Evil Clan was ranked in the top 30 sovereign forces, and they were even stronger than the Divine Beast clans like the Dragon and Phoenix clans. As the strongest genius of the Heavenly Evil Clan, the Ancient Marquis's strength was imaginable. The two fists collided, and with a loud bang, the void shook. Countless ripples spread out continuously. The reincarnation light clashed with the fist, and after a slight pause, it shattered. However, the Ancient Marquis didn't feel happy. On the contrary, he frowned and his face was gloomy. Although his fist had shattered the reincarnation light, it had also injured him. Although it wasn't a heavy injury, and it didn't even injure his tendons or bones, his skin was torn and his flesh was a mess. This was something that he couldn't accept. In the next breath, his flesh wriggled, and his fist grew back as if it was completely undamaged. You actually made me feel the feeling of being injured again. How many years has it been? You're the first. The Ancient Marquis said emotionally, but the killing intent in his words was overflowing. I will repay you well. I will repay you well. As soon as he finished speaking, he took out a long spear, and a terrifying aura spread out from his body. There was an evil aura circulating on the spear's shaft, and a terrifying aura was emitted from the spearhead. Before he even moved, the space around him was already like a spider web, and dozens of silver cracks appeared. Cardinal Treasure, Rank 3 Cardinal Treasure. Although it wasn't comparable to the few Rank 3 Cardinal Treasures that Feng Qingshan had seen before, such as the Creation Green Lotus, Heaven-Splitting Axe, Fortune Jade Archive, and Chaos Bead, it was still a Rank 3 Cardinal Treasure. However, a Rank 3 Cardinal Treasure was still a Rank 3 Cardinal Treasure. With Feng Qingshan's current timeless arc, he would probably be heavily injured if he took an attack from this Cardinal Treasure. One should know that a Rank 1 Cardinal Treasure was the standard for a Primordial Origin expert. A Rank 2 Cardinal Treasure was the standard for an Immortal Realm expert, and a Rank 3 Cardinal Treasure was the standard for a Divine Emperor expert. Furthermore, this was a higher standard, and many people couldn't even reach it. Chapter 1354. Insieho was just a primordial chaos cultivator, but he had a level 3 supreme treasure. Feng Qingshan originally thought that he was pretty good with the timeless arc and the myriad heaven chessboard, but it seemed that he was still a frog in a well. Insieho was indeed the pride of a powerful force like the Heavenly Evil Clan. He was indeed extraordinary. In fact, what Feng Qingshan didn't know was that Insieho was just an exception. Although the Heavenly Evil Clan was ranked in the top 30, it wasn't easy for them to have a Rank 3 Supreme Treasure to conceal it. The reason why he had it was because he was the current Holy Son of the Heavenly Evil Clan. In every era of the Heavenly Evil Clan, there would be a person favored by luck, the so-called Holy Son. They were born with luck and were born with great luck. When they cultivated, not only would it be smooth sailing, but it would also be out of control. If nothing went wrong, they would at least be a God Emperor when they grew up. In order to prevent accidents, such people not only had a Tao protector around them, just like Uncle Wang and Jiang Mingyue, but it was a lone match. Insieho's Tao protector was a God Emperor. In addition, the Heavenly Evil Clan also gave each Holy Son a level 3 supreme treasure. It was enough for him to use until he broke through to the God Emperor. Fortunately, with his current strength, he couldn't fully exert the power of this supreme treasure. Otherwise, there would be no need to fight. Feng Qingshan could just admit defeat. After all, when a Dharma treasure reached a certain stage, it would develop spirituality and even transform into an independent individual, be it the Spirit Clan or the Demon Clan. For example, those Dharma treasures in the immortal world and the Taoist of many treasures in the desolation. It was naturally the same in the myriad heavens. However, because of the fear of the Dharma treasure rebelling, very few people were willing to let their Dharma treasure transform. Moreover, there were thousands of great Taoists, and they all led to the same destination. It wasn't necessary to transform in order to cultivate, as long as it had spirituality. At the level of level 3 supreme treasures, apart from not transforming, it was no different from an ordinary living being. If it wasn't sealed, it would be like a god emperor. The reason why the Dao sect was able to maintain its foundation after the fall of the Celestial Emperor was not only because of the good karma they had formed, but also because of the existence of the four extreme treasures. Putting that aside, when Fang Qingshan saw the level 3 supreme treasures, he couldn't help but sigh. He had thought that the timeless ark, the bell of chaos, the red lotus of fire, and the other supreme treasures had all advanced to level 2 supreme treasures. He hadn't expected to be slapped in the face in such a short time. Moreover, what he couldn't understand the most was that the Yin Xieho who had such equipment was only a blue title. What kind of existence would a purple title be? Originally, there was still a trace of covetousness, but at this moment, it vanished like smoke in thin air. What he didn't know was that Yin Xieho was just like him. He was so unlucky that he met a peak existence with a purple title, which was why he was defeated. Yin Xieho didn't know what Fang Qingshan was thinking. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care. At this moment, after he took out his supreme treasure, he immediately made his move. The dark black spear resonated, and the sounds of slaughter resounded. It was as if a great army was fighting, and countless creatures were engaged in a chaotic battle. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a heavenly pillar. Countless cryptic symbols appeared one after another, interweaving together. On the body of the spear, an ancient diagram fiercely distorted, taking form. It was an altar made from white bones, its entire body snow white, like jade. There wasn't a trace of blood or dust on it, but it emitted a wave of extremely pure black energy. It was evil, cruel, and domineering, covering the heavens and earth, suffocating everyone. It was the item that Yin Xieho used to break the cycle of reincarnation. On top of the altar, there were two other items. It was also a dark long spear. It was almost the same as the long spear in Yin Xieho's hand. However, in terms of grade and power, it was naturally incomparable. In fact, Yin Xieho's long spear was just a replica of this long spear. This was the strongest and most ancient treasure of the Heavenly Evil clan. It existed along with the Heavenly Evil sacrificial altar. It had reached the pinnacle of level 4. Unless the Heavenly Evil clan was in a life and death situation, it couldn't be used. Ever since the Heavenly Evil clan came into existence, this treasure had only been used 3 times. However, every time it was used, the Heavenly Evil clan was saved from the danger of being exterminated. The other item was a sculpture of a person. His appearance couldn't be seen clearly. He was shrouded in an obscure, evil aura. He looked even more evil than the long spear. This person was none other than the ancestor of the Heavenly Evil clan. The primordial heavenly demon was comparable to the demon ancestor. He was the first product of the Heavenly Evil sacrificial altar, the source of all evils. He was still alive today. His cultivation had reached the pinnacle of the God Emperor realm. He was one of the oldest and strongest God Emperors. The title Steel. The God Emperor Steel had his name on it, and it was a purple title. Let's not talk about this. The long spear in the hands of the Yin Evil Monarch was a replica of the ancestral artifact of the Heavenly Evil clan. In addition to his bloodline, he cultivated the most original Heavenly Evil scripture. Therefore, although he couldn't unleash the full power of the 3rd grade treasure, he was still able to summon the Heavenly Evil sacrificial altar, the ancestral artifact, and the old ancestor shadow. It was fine if he didn't make a move, but once he did, he would take his life. As the spear fell, the entire heaven and earth seemed to have turned into the source of all evils. In an instant, Fang Qingshan's bones and tendons rang at the same time. His body shone brilliantly. His sea of consciousness shook and the bell of reincarnation appeared. It rang nonstop. The reincarnation mirror in his hand shone brilliantly too. Black and white auras intertwined. The divine abilities and spiritual treasures on his body automatically protected him. This was because the power of the Yin Evil Marquis spear was too strong. It was all-pervasive and had a majestic aura that suppressed everything. A third-grade treasure was incomparable to a second-grade treasure. Fang Qingshan sighed in his heart when he saw the long spear that looked like it was going to split the chaos and pierce the heavens. A third-grade treasure was indeed the standard for a deity emperor. Just like a deity emperor, although it was only one grade lower than a second-grade treasure, it was a qualitative leap. Becoming a deity emperor was like a deity emperor. They could establish a powerful force and become famous in the heavens. Even a top force like the Tao Will sect, they could become an elder. In Pangu's chaotic world, there were thousands of second-grade treasures. Almost all the top 1,000 demon gods had a second-grade treasure. For example, Yangmei and Samsara, they had even reached the level of second-grade treasure. However, apart from the 4 great treasures, only the origin of Great Tao and the world will had 1 or 2 third-grade treasures. It was no wonder that Pangu could fight against 3,000 demon gods alone. It wasn't just because of his cultivation, but also because of the 3 treasures, including the creation Green Lotus. Although Pangu couldn't unleash the true power of the third-grade treasure, he was still different from Evil Marquis. After all, these treasures didn't give birth to him. They were given to him by the heaven and earth luck. Chapter 1355. Now, Fang Qingshan finally understood what kind of situation Yang Mei and the rest faced back then. Although Yin Xieho's extreme Evil Spear was an ancestral artifact of the Heavenly Evil Clan, a replica of a Level 4 Supreme Treasure, it was only a low-grade Level 3 treasure. However, Pangu not only had 3 Level 3 Supreme Treasures, but he also had 3 of them. More importantly, they were all Level 3 top grade. Although he had heard Yangmei talk about the splitting of the sky in the past, although he also had the mark of splitting the sky in his mind, and had seen the demon god killed by Pangu and the supreme treasure destroyed, he would not be able to understand this feeling if he did not face it in person. Fortunately, Yin Xieho could not fully unleash the power of this treasure. This treasure was also sealed. After all, a Level 3 Supreme Treasure was a Level 3 Supreme Treasure. There would not be a situation where a dragon in shallow water would be toyed with by prawns. Just like an emperor god, even if he suppressed his cultivation to the immortal realm or primordial chaos, the situation would not be much better. Therefore, Fang Qingshan did not dare to be careless. Without hesitation, he immediately took out his trump card, the Timeless Arkansas. He knew that even if he had a few Level 2 Supreme Treasures, he would not be able to compete with a top-notch genius who took out a Level 3 Supreme Treasure. However, it was different with the Timeless Arkansas. After all, Yin Xieho was only at the peak of primordial chaos. No matter how powerful a peak of primordial chaos was, it was impossible for him to fight against a peak of a mortal realm. A Level 3 Supreme Treasure was the standard for a divine emperor. Even an immortal realm expert would not be able to unleash its full power, let alone a primordial chaos expert like him. Not to mention the full power, it would be lucky to even be able to unleash 30% of its power. The Timeless Arc was originally a counterattack effect, let alone Fang Qingshan's mutated Timeless Arkansas. Therefore, Fang Qingshan still had the confidence to fight. Dang dang dang. Dang dang dang. The bell of chaos and the beast formation breaking drum sounded at the same time. The sound of the bell and drum alternated, and a crystal-clear, holy, timeless arc trembled slightly. At this moment, Fang Qingshan's heart skipped a beat as he visualized the Tao of Green Lotus. In an instant, the 2 eternal Taoist rhymes erupted. They attracted each other, intertwined, and fused into one. One belonged to Timeless Arc, and the other belonged to Fang Qingshan. He had been blessed by the Eternal many times, and his bone marrow already had a trace of the power of eternity. Moreover, the Great Tao Green Lotus visualization diagram had been perfected, so he now had a trace of the rhythm of the everlasting lotus. The two's auras blended together like the golden wind and jade, meeting, surpassing countless others in the world. The next moment, Fang Qingshan's figure disappeared, merging into the timeless Arkansas. It wasn't sucked into the timeless arc like before. Instead, it was a complete fusion. Then, the timeless arc seemed to have turned into a sharp sword and soared into the sky, roaring as it rushed towards the Yin Xiaoho, union of man and boat. Although the timeless arc didn't need Fang Qingshan to control it, it could still unleash its power. After all, it had the artifact spirit, the Thunder Emperor, the source power, the Thunder Gathering Pagoda, and the eternal Thunder Pool. However, a weapon was a weapon, and a Dharma treasure was a Dharma treasure. As long as it wasn't a real living being, it could only be a supporting existence. Therefore, the timeless arc could only unleash its true power when it was controlled by a host. The reason why Fang Qingshan didn't use union of man and boat in the past was that there was no need for it in the situation he encountered. Or perhaps, even if he used union of man and boat, it wouldn't be of any help. Another reason was that Fang Qingshan's cultivation level was too low in the past. If he used union of man and boat, it would be better for the Thunder Emperor to do it himself. Now that his cultivation level was at the peak of primordial chaos, and he used union of man and boat, it would be a powerful combination. Buzz, boundless light blossomed. With a thought from Fang Qingshan, the entire timeless arc flew out like an unsheathed sharp sword. Right in front of the timeless arc, a sinister, sharp, and chaotic demonic horn flickered with a dim light. It was like a heavenly saber that flickered with frightening radiance and pointed at Yin Xiaoho's spear. The Thunder Gathering Pagoda swallowed as much energy as possible from all directions at the fastest speed. The Eternal Thunder Pool converted it into eternal thunder power at the fastest speed. Then, it opened the floodgates and released the power into the corresponding units. Then, the sails fluttered, and the Permitha Bridge supported it. The timeless arc was unparalleled. Even Fang Qingshan's principal spirit couldn't keep up with it as it charged towards the demonic spear ferociously. Rumble. This collision caused the surrounding void to collapse on the spot. Countless earth, fire, water, and wind elements were tumbling and roaring. Sinister and pitch-black void cracks could be seen in all directions. They were powerful enough to tear apart any physical body below the immortal realm. Originally, after Yin Xiaoho took out the replica of the ancestral spear, the extreme Yin evil spear, he thought that everything would be settled and he could rest easy. After all, with his cultivation, even if he didn't use any spiritual treasures, he could basically be said to be invincible among those of the same level, except for those geniuses who were born in top-notch forces like him. Needless to say, for safety's sake, he even took out a level 3 treasure and matched it with a top-notch combat skill. Not to mention Fang Qingshan, who he didn't think was a threat to him. It wouldn't be easy for those Saint Devil or Son of Buddha who were on the same level as him to take out their special skills. Although he also saw Fang Qingshan taking out the timeless Arkansas. But it was precisely because of this that he felt more at ease. Because Fang Qingshan's timeless arc was only at the supreme level. Even though the level 3 treasure in his hand was sealed, its nature didn't change. As expected, when the spear fell, the battlefield created by the tidal tower was smashed into pieces and turned into ruins. Silver-white fragments of a void were like mirrors, splashing in all directions. Seeing this, Yin Xiaoho revealed a faint smile. No matter how powerful one was in front of him, one would be like a monkey in the palm of the Buddha. He was still thinking about how to deal with Fang Qingshan, who injured him, and even used the extreme Yin evil spear. Unfortunately, he was happy too early. He overestimated himself and underestimated Fang Qingshan. The timeless arc was indeed at the supreme level, but it was different from ordinary supreme level experts. After all, it was already considered good for an ordinary supreme level expert to deal with 1 or 2 early immortal realm experts. However, Fang Qingshan could deal with dozens of immortal realm experts, including middle and late immortal realm experts. He had used the formation to suppress 8 early immortal realm experts. Therefore, although the Timeless Ark's grade wasn't as high as the Extreme Evil Spear, it was still sealed. Under the situation where In Xiaoho could only use 30% of the Extreme Evil Spear's power, the Timeless Ark could use 100% of its power. Under such circumstances, it was still unknown who would win. Suddenly, In Xiaoho squinted his eyes. Two rays of cold light shot out from his eyes as he stared at the center of the explosion. Because things seemed to be out of his expectation. The Extreme Evil Spear was blocked. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.